Hi everyone, and welcome back for part 2 of Enoch's. Before I shared readings, I was going to talk about, well, quite frankly, this. I'm only going to say a couple of sentences because I really have no more interest in this kind of stuff in the world at all. But changing the booster down from 6 months to 3 months as a so-called apparently new variation or whatever is coming out, is that not utterly backwards according to logic? Is that not just like is this not enough to wake everybody up in the whole world? It's insane. And you know, they're so desperate knowing that not many people are taking the bite anymore that they're now going to bring out the pill, and they reckon before Christmas. But I think people should wake up before they think that this is acceptable, because this would be just as bad. Anyway, getting on to today, a couple of things that I wanted to say is things, as far as I can see, are coming to a point where the end of the age might occur, and it might catch people unaware. And there's a lot of people out there that are doing great things, that are sharing things and knowledge and understanding with people and waking up themselves and waking up others. And there's also lots of others that, in my perception, might be falling away, claiming that they're having these conversations with God and stuff like that, and then literally quoting God. But if you read the scriptures and that, then you'll know that a lot of these people are not really saying what God would say, Christ that is. So I just think that we're at a point where everyone needs to really think about where they are in their lives and what difference they can make to bring themselves, if they've fallen down, to bring themselves up, and if they've taken themselves up, to pull themselves back down, and to find a point where we can all, rather than spend our time focusing on our differences, we can focus on the things that are going to get us through this. And as I'm going to share with everyone, you know, the times ahead are like Jacob's trouble. They're going to be the most dangerous and hard times of the entire age, even more so than the times of before the flood. But as then it is now. So the whole world has fallen away, and potentially Satan's test on the people back then was to put a mark of the beast into them, and maybe then everyone was injected with a DNA altering substance and had ultimately fallen away. And you know, if you look into them times, there were animals as well that were half human and multi-bred forms and stuff that weren't made by God, that weren't natural. So yeah, I just want to kind of look at them kind of things today and think about them things, you know, but also consider that in the Bible, Saul turned to Paul, and Saul was a persecutor of the people of Christ, you know, but he was able to be turned back to God just by a sight of vision of Christ coming to him. So when you think about the things that are going to happen in these times ahead, godless people will say people that believe in Christ are just waiting for the destruction, that they're not doing anything. And quite frankly, I disagree with that. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinions, but it's not mine. But Christ is the saviour, and when I talk about things about becoming sovereign and getting free, they are actions to take to get out of the system, to stop funding it and to stop partaking in its sin, you know, because it's going to go to destruction by the hand of God, and it's not going to be the hand of man that does it. Although it does say in Scripture that what will happen from the hand of man will be upon the oppressors, that God will give the righteous a mighty sword. Yeah, so I think we need to consider these things, and the way it's going to happen when it takes place is it's going to be a collection, a gathering, a harpazo, the taking of people, and then that is when the restrainer is removed. Christ is going to spend some time with his chosen ones, but he'll also stand on the mountain and talk to those left behind, and he'll give them power and strength, and he'll watch over them through the times ahead. But this is going to be the fire of refining. And just like Saul became Paul, in that time, it's not going to be complete annihilation of all of God's people. There's going to be people that make it through to the very end. But for them, it's going to be a real testing, a trial in the fire. And there's going to be people that wake up in this time as well that are going to turn, and they're going to be people in positions of forces, and they're going to be able to help. And just like Saul turned to Paul, there's going to be that happening in a larger scale, and it's not going to be just one individual. Just like everything in the story starts as a smaller story, but is actually purposed for the entire world, and not just the entire world of one generation, but for everyone. So so if everyone would just really think about where they're at and where they want to be, and do everything they can to humble themselves and not be looking to benefit themselves, but to benefit others and to love their neighbour. And first commandment is to love God. So for anyone that hasn't yet, please do say with your mouth that Christ is the Son of God, and that he did die on the cross for the sins of all who believe in him in their hearts, and you'll be saved. And the more you pray to him and actually focus on saying things to him that are in your heart, not just bad things but good things too, the more you end up building a relationship with the Holy Spirit, and you'll get things sent to you. And the thing is, wisdom is so much greater than most of us or any of us can perceive, so it's so many manifold that we all might think we have a really good understanding of things, but we know nothing. And when you humble yourself and you pray, and you meditate as well, but when you pray, you do get answers. They do come back to you, and it's a magical thing. It's wonderful. So if anyone hasn't said that and thought about it, please do consider it. But getting on to today anyway, there's 2 points. There's actually about a dozen points in the Book of Enoch that talk, well, the whole book is made for our times and our generation. But there's a couple of points in particular that are specifically talking about these times. So I just wanted to share them, but I would have shared the other points because there was some really good points earlier on. But when I listened to this book a couple of days ago, it was only these 2 points that I remembered the time for. So I'll just share them anyway. So this point is where Enoch was taken to a place, and he was to watch what seemed to be a farm of animals. But as you can see quite clearly, this is I'm talking about the world and the age and what's happening through time. And obviously the sheep being in this story God's people, and then the beasts being the beasts of the world, such as kings, leaders, forces, military, police, whatever, all these different things. So I just wanted to go through this a little bit.
Till another sheep arose and led them, and brought them all back, and their eyes were opened. And the dogs and the foxes and the wild boars began to devour those sheep, till the Lord of the sheep raised up another sheep, a ram from their midst, which led them. And that ram began to butt on either side of those dogs, foxes, and wild boars, till he had destroyed them all. And that sheep whose eyes were open saw that ram, which was amongst the sheep, till it forsook its glory, and began to butt those sheep, and trample upon them, and behaved its...
So the ram would be someone that's been brought up in might, and then the sheep obviously getting trampled by the ram is obviously getting trampled by someone that's turned from his position.
Self unseemly. And the Lord of the sheep sent the lamb to another lamb and raised it to being a ram and leader of the sheep instead of that ram which had forsaken its glory. And it went to it and spoke to it alone and raised it to being a ram and made it the prince and leader of the sheep. But during all these things, those dogs oppressed the sheep. And the first ram pursued that second ram, and that second ram arose and fled before it. And I saw till those dogs pulled down the first ram. And that second ram arose and led the little sheep. And those sheep grew and multiplied. But all the dogs and foxes and wild boars feared and fled before it. And that ram butted and killed the wild beasts. And those wild beasts had no longer any power.
So you can see how this point in time, I don't know what point it is. I think it is around the time of Christ. But and it goes through it more. But it's saying here how someone was brought up as a ram and it butted all the beasts and they couldn't do anything about it. So even in before times, as in latter times, the righteous are going to get power, and to overcome. But that doesn't mean to go out in violence, and that still also is people that have faith in God.
Amongst the sheep, and robbed them no more of aught. And that ram begat many sheep, and fell asleep. And a little sheep became ram in its stead, and became a prince and a leader of those sheep. And that house became great and broad, and it was built for those sheep. And a tower lofty and great was built.
Okay, so this potentially might be time of Solomon then, if a house was built.
On the house for the Lord of the sheep. And that house was low, but the tower was elevated and lofty. And the Lord of the sheep stood on that tower, and they offered a full table before him. And again I saw those sheep, that they again erred and went many ways, and forsook that their house. And that the Lord of the sheep called some from amongst the sheep, and sent them to the sheep. But the sheep began to slay them. And one.
So you can see there's a pattern of things happening, that someone righteous will stand up for the good people, cause everyone to turn back from their ways, and then very soon after, people start slipping back into their old ways. And this seems to be a cycle that most people go through, and the only way out of it is to be aware of it and to have a solution, a path to walk on. And that's what God's done, is provided us with this path of righteousness, that we can get away from the cycles. Because if the cycles of our internal failings keep occurring, then the outside world that we see is also going to go through these cycles as well.
One of them was saved and was not slain, and it sped away and cried aloud over the sheep, and they sought to slay it. But the Lord of the sheep saved it from the sheep, and brought it up to me, and caused it to dwell there. And many other sheep he sent to those sheep.
So he's saying, even in the times of Solomon, that someone was sent to Enoch to dwell with Enoch. He was sent there to dwell with him. So this might be Elijah.
To testify unto them, and lament over them. And after that I saw that when they forsook the house of the Lord and his tower, they fell away entirely, and their eyes were blinded. And I saw the Lord of the sheep, how he wrought much slaughter amongst them in their herds, until those sheep invited that slaughter, and betrayed his place. And he gave them over into the hands of the lions and tigers, and wolves and hyenas.
Do we not see things like this happening now? So who is the Lord of the sheep on the earth today in the physical form, not our spiritual Christ, of course? It would be the appearance of the Pope, wouldn't it? So that person would be the one that's handing over the sheep for destruction, even though he himself would be a beast of one of these forms, but he is handing over to all the other beasts.
And into the hand of the foxes, and to all the wild beasts. And those wild beasts began to tear in pieces those sheep. And I saw that he forsook that their house and their tower, and gave them all into the hand of the lions, to tear and devour them, into the hand of all the wild beasts. And I began to cry aloud with all my power, and to appeal to the Lord of the sheep, and to represent to him in regard to the sheep that they were devoured by all the wild beasts. But he remained unmoved, though he saw it, and rejoiced that they were devoured and swallowed and robbed, and left them to be devoured in the hand of all the beasts.
And this isn't because the Lord takes righteousness in destruction. Doesn't take pleasure in destruction, but righteousness. So when people have fallen away, and when everyone's willing to line up to get a bite, without understanding, just blindly will give up their birthright. It's almost like a spiritual insult, and we really need to take note of what we're willing to do in our lives, even the little things and the big things as well. And it's not just internally, and it's externally as well. So we all need to be conscious and awake to be able to do these things. Otherwise, you just fall into patterns again.
And he called 70 shepherds and cast those sheep to them, that they may pass.
So here the 70 shepherds could be the apostles after Christ, potentially.
Pasture them. And he spake to the shepherds and their companions, let each individual of you pasture the sheep henceforward, and everything that I shall command that you do, do ye. And I will deliver them over to you duly numbered, and tell you which of them are to be destroyed, and them destroy ye. And he gave over unto them those sheep, and he called another and spake unto him, observe and mark everything that the shepherds will do to them.
So here's a bit that I really wanted to share at this point. Is the point of the story now where it talks about recording those that are sent to destruction. And if we're in a position like that now, then the destruction has begun, and as you'll see, they're allotted a number, and that their wickedness far overcomes that number, goes way over the top. But we'll carry on anyway.
Those sheep, for they will destroy more of them than I have commanded them. And every excess and the destruction which will be wrought through those shepherds record, namely how many they destroy according to my command, and how many according to their own caprice, record. Against every individual shepherd, all the destruction he effects.
So if this is talking about 70 leaders throughout time, each leader acting as a generation from the prior, then this is a record of all those that have been killed since the days of Christ, since the saints were slaughtered. And so though they think that when they get their orders from Satan to do these things, they go over the top and go further than what they're permitted to do. And this is all being recorded. So right now, how it's atrocious how so many people are passing on at the moment because of this situation in the world, and it's not being mentioned. And when it is being mentioned, the things that were thrown in everybody's faces a year ago to bring about a belief are now so quiet and not mentioned because they don't want to let everyone know the truth. And this is what's insane. And this is why we need to wake up, because this is the time, we're in the time that's at hand, that where we either go with the wicked into the ditch, or we stop following them and we don't fall in the ditch with them,
And read out before me by number how many they destroy, and how many they deliver over for destruction, that I may have this as a testimony against them, and know every deed of the shepherds, that I may comprehend and see what they do, whether or not they abide by my command which I have commanded them. But they shall not know it, and thou shalt not declare it to them, nor admonish them, but only record against each individual all the destruction which the shepherds effect, each in his time, and lay it all before me. And I saw till those shepherds pastured in their season, and they began to slay and to destroy more than they were bidden.
And is that not the the history that at least we were able to find out about over the past 2,000 years or so, that it has been just destruction after destruction. That when you look through scriptures and that, you'd see that the generations from Adam even to Christ were easily recorded, 77 generations. But I can't even find out who my great granddad was, which was 3 generations back. So history in the past was well known, and as it says in scripture, the world was a beautiful place according to the works of man, but we shouldn't worship that, but that's another point. But the world was a beautiful place up until the time of Rome. If you look at the vision of Daniel, you'll see how Rome became those that trampled over everything, and they went around destroying everyone and conquering. And before that, when you overtook a land, you took over their properties, you slaughtered all the people, and you took over their properties and their riches as your own. And that was the way of getting gains out of war. Whereas from the Romans onwards, they took on a new way, and it was a diverse way from the previous ways. And that was to trample everything and to rebuild and to alter the history. So it's been going on from prior times. So it has been a point where things can get so muddied that it confuses everyone. But if you stay diligent, you might not get it all right, but you'll be able to see when there is a deception at hand.
And they delivered those sheep into the hands of the lions, and the lions and tigers ate and devoured the greater part of those sheep, and the wild boars ate along with them, and they burnt that tower and demolished that house. And I became exceedingly sorrowful over that tower, because that house of the sheep was demolished, and afterwards I was unable to see if those sheep entered that house. And the shepherds and their associates delivered over those sheep to all the wild beasts to devour them, and each one of them received in his time a definite number. It was written by the other in a book how many each one of them destroyed of them, and each one slew and destroyed many more than was prescribed. And I began to weep and lament on account of those sheep. And thus in a vision I saw that one.
So where also people are being destroyed here, it might appear to someone without understanding that this is a horrible thing, but basically it's those that have fallen away that aren't able to bring themselves back, and to go through death is probably the best thing, because there is no way out of it. You're only making things worse, and when the judgment of God comes, if God knows you're not going to turn back and you've got a long time ahead of you before your death, you can commit a lot of sin with absolutely no way of repenting. It's going to make your judgment a lot worse. So sometimes death will come earlier at some people, and I'm not saying that's the only reason. I don't know all things or anything like that. I'm just a man. But so this also gives a chance for those that have woken to find the freedom on the earth again, because the land is cleared of the unrighteousness.
And he wrote, how he wrote down every one that was being destroyed by those shepherds, day by day, and carried up and laid down and showed actually the whole book to the Lord of the sheep, even everything that they had done, and all that each one of them had made away with, and all that they had given over to destruction. And the book was read before the Lord of the sheep. And he took the book from his hand and read it and sealed it and laid it down. And forthwith I saw how the shepherds pastured for 12 hours. And behold, 3 of those sheep turned back, and came and entered, and began to build up all that had fallen down of that house. But the wild boars tried to hinder them, but they were not able. And they began to build as before, and they reared up that tower, and it was named the High Tower. And they began again to place a table before the tower, but all the bread on it was polluted and not pure. And as touching all this, the eyes of those sheep were blinded, so that they saw not, the eyes of their shepherds likewise, and they delivered them in large numbers to their...
And this is not what happens now, that people that fall away You know, so if you look at things from the 1800s, you might see that people generally were more pleasant in society, whereas now, you know, it's all about if you look at the TV, it's all about sex and products and services, you know, and sexualization and all the things of destroying the good things that people were like generations ago. And if it can deteriorate that quickly, how often does this happen? But each of them do their thing. They take over and they trample. And if that, I know I said maybe this was the time of Solomon, but being that Elijah went to visit Enoch, it's probably the first temple.
Their shepherds for destruction, and they trampled the sheep with their feet and devoured them. And the Lord of the sheep remained unmoved till all the sheep were dispersed over the field, and mingled with them the beasts.
So this could be the time of the 12 tribes going out.
And the shepherds did not save them out of the hands of the beasts. And this one who wrote the book carried it up and showed it and read it before the Lord of the sheep, and implored him on their account, and besought him on their account, as he showed him all the doings of the shepherds, and gave testimony before him against all the shepherds. And he took the actual book and laid it down beside him and departed. And I saw till in that manner 35 shepherds undertook the pasturing of the sheep, and they severally completed their periods, as did the first. And others received them into their hands, to pasture them for their period, each shepherd in his own period. And after that I saw in my vision all the birds of heaven coming, the eagles, the vultures, the kites, the ravens. But the eagles led all the birds, and they began to devour those sheep, and to pick out their eyes, and to devour their flesh.
Isn't an eagle a symbol on someone at the moment? On their force.
And the sheep cried out, because their flesh was being devoured by the birds. And as for me, I looked and lamented in my sleep over that shepherd who pastured the sheep. And I saw again until those sheep were delivered by the dogs and eagles and kites, and they left neither flesh nor skin nor sinew remaining on them, till only their bones stood there, and their bones too fell to the earth.
And if they're messing with DNA at the moment, then isn't that what's happening? They've literally messed with everything in the world: the air, the earth, the water, the blood and the flesh of all things. Well, not all things, but as many as they can.
And the sheep became few. And I saw until that 23 had undertaken the pasturing, and completed their several periods 58 times. But behold, lambs were born by those white sheep, and they began to open their eyes and to see, and to cry to the sheep. Yea, they cried to them, but they did not hearken to what they said to them, but were exceedingly deaf, and their eyes were very...
And this is kind of like where, I know this is still talking about prior times, but this is also what it's like now as well, that those that do see Christ and have awakened, you know, in these times it would have been God the Father, but since Christ has lived, you know, people that would see Christ go out and talk and spread the gospel, the good news, and very few people here. And, you know, there are even people awake now that still refuse that God exists because they believe in the earthly things, you know. I do believe we can make this a better place, and we will, with the power of God, but it's just got to go through the destruction of the earthly things before the heavenly things can appear.
Exceedingly blinded. And I saw in the vision how the ravens flew upon those lambs, and took one of those lambs, and dashed the sheep in pieces, and devoured them. And I saw till horns grew upon those lambs, and the ravens cast down their horns. And I saw till there sprouted a great horn of one of those sheep.
So, you know, these lambs with horns are people that are standing up for the sake of the Lord and righteousness. And even when they get stronger and grow horns, they're still cast down. But then, you know, a great horn is someone that is mighty.
And their eyes were opened, and it looked at them, and their eyes opened. And it cried to the sheep, And the rams saw it, and all ran to it. And notwithstanding all those eagles and vultures and ravens and kites still kept tearing the sheep and swooping down upon them and devouring them, still the sheep remained silent. But the rams lamented and cried out, and those ravens fought and battled with it.
And is that not what it's like now? You know, the destruction has already begun. They've already started the deception of doing their thing. And it doesn't matter how loud some people shout, it's just not going in. It is going in one ear, but it's coming out the other, and just many are just not prepared to hear it.
And sought to lay low its horn, but they had no power over it. And I saw till the shepherds and eagles and those vultures and kites came, and they cried to the ravens that they should break the horn of that ram. And they battled and fought with it, and it battled with them, and cried that its help might come. And I saw till a great sword was given to the sheep, and the sheep proceeded against all the beasts of the field.
And this is what's to come in our end time as well, which is where the Lord will give a great sword to the sheep to go against the beasts, which is the ones that have torn away at the God's people for all this 2,000 years.
To slay them, and all the beasts and the birds of the heaven
for the whole age
and fled before their face. And I saw that man who wrote the book according to the command of the Lord, till he opened that book concerning the destruction which those 12 last shepherds that wrought, and showed that they had destroyed much more than their predecessors before the Lord of the sheep.
So the last 12 out of all of them were worst. So yeah, things get worse towards the end before the Lord works his work and saves his people.
And I saw till that man who wrote down the names of the shepherd and carried up into the presence of the Lord of the sheep, and came and helped it and showed it everything. He had come down for the help of that ram. And I saw till the Lord of the sheep came unto them, and took in his hand the staff of his wrath, and smote the earth, and the earth clave asunder, and all the beasts and all the birds of heaven fell from among those sheep, and were swallowed up in the earth, and it covered them.
So if this is to happen at the end of time, then it does say at another point that the great cataclysm where Enoch sees a star fall from heaven and break the earth, and mountains fall upon mountains, that there's a massive hole or breaking on the side of the earth. Now, it could be that it's something like it punches a hole through, but I don't know, you know, possibly where on the globe, the ring of fire, on the flat earth, it's a section of about a quarter of the entire size of the circle of the earth. It could be that it hits somewhere there, and then that snaps off or breaks off, and many mountains that are already around them kind of areas, rings of fire and such, where volcanic ashes, like volcanoes, that could be the hills falling upon the hills potentially. But yeah, there's bits in the Bible where it talks about people chasing good people getting swallowed up by the earth as well, that earthquakes happened and people and armies and that got swallowed up and sunk into the earth and died immediately, obviously.
And I saw till the Lord of the sheep came unto them in wrath, and all who saw him fled, and they all fell into his shadow from before his face. And I saw till a throne was erected in the pleasant land, and the Lord of the sheep sat himself thereon. And the other took the sealed books, and opened those books before the Lord of the sheep. And the Lord called those men the 7 first white ones, and commanded that they should bring before him, beginning with the first star which led the way, all the stars whose privy members were like those of horses. And they brought them all before him. And he said to that man who wrote before him, being one of those 7 white ones, and said unto him, take those 70 shepherds to whom I delivered the sheep, and who taking them on their own authority slew more than I had commanded them. And behold, they were...
So, as you said there as well, you know, the Lord does appoint leaders and rulers. So when we do have wicked leaders and rulers over us, it's because we've fallen away, and it's a way to wake us up, you know. Otherwise, we would just live in blindness forever. And the whole point of this is this age is to learn, is to show God that we love Him, that show our neighbours and our families and friends and even our enemies that we love them, that we're all of the same making, you know, we're humans, whether we get along with people or not. We're still descendants all the way back to Adam. At some point we'll all be some kind of relation to each other. So and like Christ did, you know, He gave His life for people, and He didn't, when He got taken and someone like sliced the ear off one of the soldiers, that's not what Christ wanted, you know. They were His people too, them soldiers that took Him to His death. It was just that they didn't know what they were doing, and He prayed for them. He said, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
All bound, I saw, and they all stood before Him. And the judgment was first held over the stars, and they were judged and found guilty, and went to the place of condemnation, and they were cast into an abyss, full of fire and flaming, and full of pillars of fire. And those 70 shepherds were judged and found guilty, and they were cast into that fiery abyss.
So the 7 stars could be the potentially 7 dark spirits that are what we would talk of as Satan or whatever, that are ruling over man over this time. And then the 70 dark shepherds that were appointed, the sheep underneath them, and destroyed way more than they were supposed to, are the leaders of the world over the time.
I saw at that time how a like abyss was opened in the midst of the earth, full of fire, and they brought those blinded sheep, and they were all judged and found guilty, and cast into this fiery abyss, and they burned. Now this abyss was to the right of that house, and I saw those sheep burning, and their bones burning. And I stood up to see till they folded up that old house, and carried off all the pillars, and all the beams and ornaments of that house were at the same time folded up with it, and they carried it off, and laid it in a place in the south of the land. And I saw till the Lord of the sheep brought a new house, greater and loftier than the first, and set it up in the place of the first, which had been folded up. And all...
Shoot. Hang on a sec. There you go. So yeah, this is like talking about the temple being changed, but also, you know, about the world, that God will change the heaven and the earth and bring in a new heaven and a new earth, and it will be completely different. That the age to come, the righteousness that He talks about in other places, that He'll build people with, He'll build homes for people with beautiful stones and stuff like that. And yeah, this is basically also a description of the new age. But to get away from that, I don't want to spend too long going on this book, because I want to share the reading of the other book. So I'll go on to this point of this one here. And this is a point where Enoch's talking about the age in form of 10 weeks. Now, I'm not too certain if it's 10 weeks, one after the other, of the whole age, or whether it's 10 random weeks that are appointed times throughout the age, or both. But we'll go for it anyway.
And showed you the paths of righteousness and the paths of violence. Yea, I will show them to you again, that you may know what will come to pass. And now hearken unto me, my sons, and walk in the paths of righteousness, and walk not in the paths of violence, for all who walk in the paths of unrighteousness shall perish forever. And after that Enoch both gave and began to recount from the books. And Enoch said, concerning the children of righteousness, and concerning the elect of the world.
So the elect of the world are those that are saved at the end of the age. So this is Enoch addressing people of our time, and he's talking to 2 different types of people. That's the children of righteousness and the elect of the world.
And concerning the plant of uprightness, I will speak these things. Yea, I, Enoch, will declare them unto you, my sons, according to that which appeared to me in the heavenly vision, and which I have known through the word of the holy angels, and have learned from the heavenly tablets. And Enoch began to recount from the books, and said, I was born the 7th in the 1st week.
So, yeah, if you could right now work it out as that the 7th in the 1st week is a certain time, and that the 10 ages are continuous to a point where they account for the whole age. But like I said, I think in my previous videos, bigger things can be broken down into smaller things, so you can pick up understanding and wisdom in multiple places if you look for it.
While judgment and righteousness still endured. And after me there shall arise in the 2nd week great wickedness, and deceit shall have sprung up, and in it there shall be the first end.
And that will be the flood, which was the year 46, I think, or something like that, after the year of Adam.
And in it shall a man be saved, and after it has ended unrighteousness shall grow up, and a law shall be made for the sinners.
So then the law made was when Moses come and spoke to the Lord and brought the 10 Commandments.
And after that, in the 3rd week, at its close, a man shall be elected as the plant of righteous judgment, and his posterity shall become the plant of righteousness forevermore.
So that'd be King David, possibly, or Abraham. Right, yeah, David.
And after that, in the 4th week, at its close, visions of the holy and righteous shall be seen, and a law for all generations, and an enclosure shall be made for them.
Is this talking about Christ? I'm not too sure.
And after that, in the 5th week, at its close, the house of glory and dominion shall be built forever. And after that, in the 6th week, all who live in it shall be blinded, and the hearts of all them shall godlessly forsake wisdom. And in it a man shall ascend, and
Christ, yeah.
At its close, the house of dominion shall be burnt with fire.
That being the destruction of Rome, maybe.
And the whole race of the chosen root shall be dispersed. And after that, in the 7th week, shall an apostate generation arise, and many shall be its deeds. And all its deeds shall be apostate, and at its close shall be elected the elect.
If that's talking about the end of the age, of the time of now, at that point, sorry.
Righteous of the eternal plant of righteousness, to receive 7-fold instruction concerning all his creation. For who is there of all the children of men that is able to hear the voice of the Holy One without being troubled? And who can think his thoughts?
So, God permeates all things. You know, when you look at anything, you can see the creation of God in the way plants grow, and even the way things move in the heavens and the skies. And you know, God is omnipresent, omnipotent in all the heaven and all the earth. It couldn't hold him. So he's everywhere. He's around us. He's within us as well. So sometimes, you know, we need to realize that and try and awaken a bit more, and try and learn when Spirit's trying to say something to us.
And who is there that can behold all the works of heaven? And how should there be one who could behold the heaven? And who is there that could understand the things of heaven, and see a soul or a spirit, and could tell thereof, or ascend and see all their ends, and think them, or do like them? And who is there of all men that could know what is the breadth and the length of the earth, and to whom has been shown the measure of all of them? Or is there anyone who could discern the length of the heaven, and how great its...
And you know, these things have been revealed to us already as well. obviously they weren't at the time of Enoch, but they were over time, such as the tabernacle. And I know the one that we're shown in the world at the moment is a rectangular tabernacle, but as far as I'm aware, it was actually in them times a circular tabernacle, and that you had a massive hole at the top of it as well, and then like 25% or so of the face of the sides of the tent were open. So and then there was the separation, and then this Holy of Holies, like a veil in the tent separating the back half, and that would be the Holy of the Holies. And the sacrifices were done at the front of the tent, where the sacrificing of the animals were done for making atonement. And this is basically, when you look into these stories, that where people go and see the abyss and hell, and they go to the ends of the earth and they go out and they see all these things. So they could be going to that point of the end of the earth where they go out of the tent. And also the table, which is placed within the tabernacle, would be the size of the table of the earth, because the Lord does everything with manifold wisdom and knowledge. So there's always more to learn. There's always more to understand. It's amazing.
Height, and upon what it is founded, and how great is the number of the stars, and where all the luminaries rest. And after that there shall be another, the 8th week, that of unrighteousness. And a sword shall be given to it, that a righteous judgment may be executed on the oppressors.
So then, this being the 8th week, if this is the what we would call the 8th day, when the Lord comes, if this is the case, and not talking about another time that's history to us that happened in the past, this will be that there will be the sinners still in the world, that the oppressors, will still be in the world when the Lord comes back with his saints and they set up kingdom. And this won't be a momentary thing that all of a sudden the wicked will be gone with a flick of a finger. No, there'll be righteous judgment, and it will be executed on the oppressors. It'll take a bit of time to get through to them across the earth.
And sinners shall be delivered into the hands of the righteous. And at its close they shall acquire houses through their righteousness. And a house shall be built for the great King in glory forevermore. And all mankind shall look to the path of uprightness. And after that, in the 9th week, the righteous judgment shall be revealed to the whole world. And all the works of the godless shall vanish from all the earth, and the world shall be written down for destruction. And after this, in the 10th week, in the 7th part, there shall be the great eternal judgment, in which he will execute vengeance amongst the angels. And the first heaven shall depart and pass away, and a new heaven shall appear, and all the power...
See, this is talking about, because this is from such old times, it was revealed to Enoch in a particular way, where times to us of understanding that will take place, like the heaven passing away and the new earth beginning, that would be the entire destruction, so, but it's yet said in one sentence.
Of the heavens shall give sevenfold light.
But this is details and description of what it's going to be like in the new world, so it's going to be a lot brighter. Everything's going to have sevenfold light, which means we will also emit light. And in that world, it's the same with emotion and feeling and understanding, that everything's heightened sevenfold as well. So there will just be no people doing wicked things, because no one would be able to stomach it in their mind. It would just be put away. No one would ever give it another thought.
And after that there will be many weeks without number forever. And all shall be in goodness and righteousness, and sin shall be no more mentioned forever. And now I say unto you, my sons, love righteousness, and walk therein. For the paths of righteousness are worthy of acceptation. But the paths of unrighteousness shall suddenly be destroyed and vanish.
When you understand that, that this world is a testing ground ultimately, where we're put in a place underneath oppression and wickedness to test our faith in God. And not everyone did. There was different times throughout the age where the oppression was wiped out by God's people that turned up to be kings, and it was just after they were gone and our wickedness came back that then oppressors led over us again. So
And to certain men of a generation shall the paths of violence and death be revealed, and they shall hold themselves afar from them, and shall not follow them. And now I say unto you, the righteous, walk not in the paths of wickedness, nor in the paths of death.
And this is even from the beginning of the age, telling us not to follow them when they start trying to kill everyone and with wickedness and death.
And draw not nigh unto them, lest ye be destroyed.
So drawing not nigh unto them is where I talk about becoming sovereign, pulling yourself out of the system, walking away from Babylon, if you will.
But seek and choose for yourselves righteousness and an elect life.
And, this is why I also say maybe that it's great to see the amount of people going to protests, waking up, getting together as communities and that. But that's still, as I say, giving power to the oppressors by submitting requests for what you desire, when ultimately you need to get away from them because they're acting wickedly. You need to become sovereign and turn to God, So when we're trying to say we need to stand up and rise up and fight, that, as far as I'm aware, is disobedience in the Bible. What we need to do is turn away from them and not partake anything with them at all anymore. And then if they come after God's people, which they will, be prepared to die, because this world is a temporary thing, a test. And all those that do die for the name of the Lord will have much greater glory in the world to come. And it's hard to explain, and that's what the faith of God is. If you understand this and you can see the wisdom in the writings of Scripture, then this is where you generate your faith from. And that's why a lot of people that don't have faith in God, they haven't read Scriptures. And there's even those that have read Scriptures when they were younger, but never really got to read it for themselves, but just took on the opinions of their parents or the church that they were going to, and always had a distrust for it, because the opinions that they took on board and counted as their understanding of Scripture, because that's what they read, when really it was just an opinion, just like how the TV and the radios and stuff subliminally affect your opinions nowadays, as we can clearly see with the MSN, the mainstream media and that. So,
And walk in the paths of peace, and ye shall live and prosper, and hold fast my word.
And with this time, it's those that turn away from God that get destroyed. So it will say in other points that it happens in a moment or very quickly. So steadfast in God will see you through this troubled time, and after that there might be very few people left around, but then the few that are left around would inherit everything, the world, all the lands, all the cities, all the buildings, and there'd be no more need to pay rent or anything, and it would be a place of peace with the Lord.
In the thoughts of your hearts, and suffer them not to be effaced from your hearts. For I know that sinners will tempt men to evilly entreat wisdom, so that no place may be found for her, and no manner of temptation may minish. Woe to those who build unrighteousness and oppression, and lay deceit as a foundation, for they shall suddenly be overthrown.
Suddenly. So this is a conversation of Enoch to the final generation of this time. So they will suddenly be overthrown.
And they shall have no peace. Woe to those who build their houses with sin, for from all their foundations they will be overthrown.
So when God takes the first lot, the hard parts of the people, there'll be a shaking. The earth will shake as he speaks, and it could knock down a lot of buildings. So yeah, a lot of everything in the world is corrupt and in one form or another at the moment. But one of the biggest industries, as I'm aware, is construction of housing of people, at least in most countries anyway.
And by the sword shall they fall, and those who acquire gold and silver in judgment suddenly shall perish.
It also says in other places that at the end of time that gold will be worth nothing and people will be throwing it out their windows. Which I know a lot of people have a lot of belief in gold because it's always been a stable backing of wealth. But I think when the final end of the age comes, I don't think any wealth is going to survive, whether it's electronic, digital wealth or if it's hard-standing wealth. I don't think wealth is going to save anyone, but it will be your righteousness and your faith in God to listen to the voice that takes you to the right place at the right time and does the right thing.
Woe to you, ye rich, for you have trusted in your riches, and from your riches you shall depart, because you have not remembered the Most High in the days of your riches. You have committed blasphemy and unrighteousness, and have become ready for the day of slaughter, and the day of darkness, and the day of the great judgment. Thus I speak and declare unto you, he who hath created you will overthrow you.
So, sorry, I can hear water running. I'm back in a sec. So, the judgment will come from the hand of God, not from the people. Although, like it says in other places, God will give a great sword to his people. So there will be a point where he will allow them to cast judgment on the oppressors, but it will ultimately be God that will overthrow them in whichever manner it happens.
And for your fall there shall be no compassion, and your Creator will rejoice at your destruction, and your righteous ones in those days shall be a reproach to the sinners and the godless.
So you can imagine when the whole world wakes up to what's going on at the moment, you know, it's going to be a lot of anger, and at the destruction of the others, it will be a form of rejoicing. And some might say, people rejoicing at murder, but it's not murder, it's acting out a righteous judgment. And when it happens, it will be at a point in time when a lot of people are screaming as loud as they can, why won't anyone wake up? Why won't anyone do anything? But God works in the humble of people, you know, and he knocks low the pride and he rises up the humble. So this is the way God works. So that's why I have no fear or worry. I know that there is trial and times ahead, but and what point in time I get to be with the Lord, I don't know. But all I know is I can put my faith in him and I can keep studying while there's light in the world. And when the darkness comes, if I'm still here, then all I can do is try to be that light in the darkness as long as I'm able to, till, you know, the end of my life or whatever, or the end of the age.
Oh, that mine eyes were a cloud of waters, that I might weep over you.
Alright, so I won't carry on with this. Like I said, I don't want to waste all my time going through this book because I'd like to do that at another time, if there is time. But that's it from Enoch anyway, and I'll share the other book that I've got, which is Enoch, the Book of God. Hope you enjoy that, and I'll speak to you all soon. Take care and God bless. Chapter 16, A Sermon to the Sons of Men. My command of the Eternal, I make known truth. My son, hearken to my speech. A voice calls me, a spirit is formed around me. I reveal things needful to be known. Listen to the word of my mouth. Beloved, bind thyself in integrity. Approach it not with double heart. Walk not with the two-minded. Their tongues are scorpions, but persevere steadfastly in righteousness, with truth alone for thy companion. She is an angel from heaven. Though she dwelleth some time on earth, I know that injustice exists. Yea, it prevails greatly. Yet even on the earth retribution happeneth, and the sinful are torn up by the roots. Let the fear of the Lord be in all thy works, and gain shall come to thee without labour. Rise not with the sun, or retire with the moon, until thou hast bowed unto thy holy name. The holy name. Greatest of all spirits, most exalted of intelligence, the first in the heavenly spheres, the fountain of beautiful and holy. The Lord of justice goeth forth from heaven. He goes to put in force his laws. The evildoers are swept away. They perish under the face of the sun. Every unholy tower shall crumble. It shall be burnt with its keepers in fire. The plough shall scatter the ruins. They shall fall into judgment of death. The flaming womb of hell receives them. They are clothed in darkness and confusion. From the divine presence they are expelled. The sword of flame warns them away. The pure shall wake as if from sleep. Wisdom shall be exalted high. But by the sword shall sinners perish. In flame shall the blasphemer pine. Every work of the ungodly shall disappear. The habitations of the evil shall rot. But the house of the great king and judge shall stand in majesty forever. Garments of life are with the Lord of spirits, pure robes of light everlasting. In the presence of him they shall not wax old, nor shall the splendour of their owners diminish. And when the former heaven shall pass, a new heaven shall appear in its place. The pure shall shine in sevenfold light, in the majesty of the Lord's splendour. Be thou not aggrieved because of the times. There is a period prescribed to all things. Let the truly good arise and gird himself with virtue, holiness, and love. Love shall descend in a shower of light upon him who loveth truly. His way shall be a path of roses. He shall walk in everlasting sunshine, from mystic visions from the Holy Spirit. Hath my soul learned these things? I have read them in the tablets of heaven. Let men receive them in the heart. My son, survey the various heavens of light, the vast and varied ocean and its treasures, the islands, continents, and mountains. Whence have they came, and who made them? Who formed them to shine in lustre? Who impelled their living energies? Who clothed them in robes of beauty, imprinting grandeur upon every part? Was it not God, the divine being, the infinite and intellectual splendour? The one immortal amid the mortal, the one eternal amid that which dies. Hearken now unto me, for I speak the truth of God, as no other man speaketh it. That which is the truth is here in me. It existeth, nowhere else among mortals. I heard a choir of holy spirits chanting this hymn. Amid the heavens soft was the music of their voices, as they rose to God like perfume. O thou, who seekest knowledge of thy Holy One, be thyself imbued with sacred thoughts. Follow not the divine for the things that are unhallowed, nor pursue celestial things with carnal purposes. God is eternal. The universe is perpetual. God is exempt from time, but the universe subsists in time. God, who is all life, light, and love, subsisted prior to both light and darkness. From all eternity, in venerable solitude, he had no equal, nor any rival. All men have equal potential before God. So going over the pages here. All men are the children of him, mortal. Forget not this truth. Let it be graven in thy innermost heart. In thy morning hour meditate upon it. Remember it in the time of night. Let it shape all thine actions. and never once be absent from thy life. Wouldst thou see what God has made distinct? Observe the difference in trees and birds. The dove differs from the peacock, the banyan from the rose. But man hath the same bone and figure, is born in the same way, and dieth in the same way. Therefore write this upon thine heart, that all men are one and the same in their nature. There is one sovereign power and one God who made the heavens and the earth with an S there, who made the oceans and the force of winds, and gave their brightness to the lightnings. The universe, which was a breath from God, gradually grew into its perfect beauty in millions of revolving years by the laws of gravity, fluidity, and centrifugal force. Hang on a minute. Is this saying this is actually what Enoch wrote? I can't believe it. Yeah, I think this might be misinformation. But gravity. Anyway, let me carry on. God is not the sun, yet is he the beauty of the sun. God is not the ocean, yet is he the majesty of the ocean. God is not the wind, yet is he the swiftness of the wind. God is not the light, yet he is the splendour of the light. For he is the source in all things, of their essence, and of that which makes them glorious and divine. Hence their glory and divineness are but faint types of him who irradiates them with these very qualities. I don't know, maybe that verse I laughed at with gravity in it, maybe there was a law of gravity then, but pertaining to the flat earth. I don't know. The supreme being of life, light and wisdom, a triad in name, but one in energy. He has moulded all existences and things visible and invisible out of mere atoms. Yeah, this has got to be written by this guy. He's got to put some of this in, because surely they didn't know what atoms were back then. I don't know. And out of the dark, whirling, stormy atmosphere, which was the chaos of conflicting powers, he formed the bright, harmonious oceans of ether, calm and solemn beauty, and repose. But when the harmony of heaven sounds, the stars, the seas, the rivers hear with rapture, the sky rejoices at the splendid music, and nature symphonizes with heaven. This chaos whereof the universe is formed was void of form or quality and harmonized energy, but was its plastic nature capable of form and being reduced into perfect proportions. It did not begin to exist, nor can it be annihilated, but it perpetually undergoes transformations, whence arises all the modes of existence and all the manifested appearances of matter. Before the universe was shaped into beauty, the whole space was filled with God. The infinite intellectual everywhere prevailed, until the eternal mind spake. Then the divine masterpiece was formed. Then the spirit light withdrew within a circle, enfolding and ensphering, as if in a ring, the mighty grandeur of the new creation. This universe full of life, spirits visible in forms and images, spirits invisible to the natural eye, and only seen within the sun-bright spheres. Like the shadow which the golden rays of the evening star cast, when bodies interpose between her and the earth, when the thin ethereal luminous forms, and those who wander in these shining places, they are not male, they are not female, they assume shapes at will. The grandeur of the heroic form, the beauty of the child virgin. The universe is composed of 9 circles, immense and splendid spheres of glowing light, and without all is the sphere of God eternal, embracing all other worlds of creation. Three spaces of spheres are there, spheres of heaven. The circle of space which none but God can inhabit. The circle of causes which comprehends all existences. And the circle of happiness which all may attain. Yet all this starry firmament of beauty shall pass away and cease to be in the days to come. They shall be changed by fire. They shall be renovated by water, as of old in the olden time. God shall come forth out of the places afar off. He will tread upon the mountains, and the mountains shall give way under him. And the valleys shall he make straight before his feet. And the pillars of the earth shall be shaken. The voice of the Supreme shall be heard. The mighty heaven shall hear and tremble. The sea and the waves shall quake with terror. The sun shall not be visible. The moon shall also withhold her light. There shall be no death, nor any destruction, but all shall be renovated and made more beautiful than ever. Interesting. That's what I wrote next to that paragraph in the book. As the earth produces trees and flowers from its bosom, but itself neither trees nor flowers, but comprehends these beautiful things within it, their seed of their verdant bloom. As the sea produces shells and roses, yet itself neither shells nor roses, but comprehends these beautiful things within the azure valleys of its bosom. Even so is it with all circling Father, from whom spirits of all species proceed of him, in him, through him, and by him, yet wholly distinct and separated from him. O Son, confide everlastingly in the Lord God. Put thy faith in him, as in the just Father, who giveth his meed unto every creature, and he will not disappoint thee in thy faith. Man of spirit, soul, and body, three properties in one appearance, but his spirit part is immaterial and undying, and his body part is mortal. But the aromatic essence, which is the intermediate soul, partakes of the earthly and the celestial. It survives the earth and transmigrates into a higher sphere, but cannot enter into that which is most high. God hath given us a guardian angel to every man his conscience, which tells him what is right, which rebels whenever he meditates evil. My son, let this angel lead thee in all things. O great and splendid spirit, who art in man, feeding upon the garbage of the vile earth, go to the lion and take a lesson from the lion, who would die rather than touch the leavings of a dog. The spirit longing to be free anticipates dissolution. It looks forth into the paradise ether. It longs to leap into splendid light, freed from the mortal body, which is its chain. As the body of the dead changes into a new form of life, developing itself in grass or flowers or worms, even so his spirit, which is immortal, passes into existence different from that which is possessed before. The 12 incarnations of God are 12 shining mountains, bright as gems, with hearts of living flame, with energies of restless as burning fire. 12 are the mountain spheres or mountains in the Father's house, which is the universe. Into each one of these ascendeth a Messiah, with the glorious host of his followers. There are 12 shining wells of pure waters, which send forth 12 rivers. Yeah, there are quite a few places in here I might find questionable, but who am I saying? There is a book of light in heaven, divided into 12 chapters. The laws that God hath once made can never be changed, even in the least. The laws of men are fallible and are altered by men. The laws of God are infallible and immutable. God is eternal. He is wrongly designated when he is called everlasting. The eternal never had a beginning, but the everlasting had a beginning, but will have no end. God sends his sacred messengers of truth into other spheres as well as into the sphere of man. As the life of man is ever sustained by fresh air, and perishes if it receive it not, so do souls and spirits perish if truth, which is their life, be not renewed unto them. God doeth all his wondrous works through the medium of the firstborn one. This is the Spirit of God, who everlastingly reneweth all things. In the paradise sphere of God there is a fountain. Oh yes, so that is Christ, obviously, at the end of the last verse. In the paradise sphere of God there is a fountain embowered around by olive trees and palms. The sun ariseth in its bosom. The golden stars emerge from its silver zone. Blue are its shining waters, of a deep blue like a child's dark eyes. And when its ripples glitter in the sunlight, there are 1,000 flashing emeralds. O pilgrim of God, seekest thou this fountain? Wouldst thou taste its sweet waters? O wanderer of eternity, follow, and I will lead thee to its green solitude. Behold, the sun goes before us in our journey. The sun himself points out the way. O pilgrim, faint not, neither be weary. The paradise fountain is at hand. And when we reached this lonely fountain, we saw a virgin with fair eyes, softer she from the beam of the morning. Her smile was as the rose in summer. She bathed our feet. She poured rich perfume over our hands and travelled soiled hair. And when we rested, she gave us sweet wine and cakes of honey richer than ambrosia. They shall not worship any idol. Thou shalt not do any murder. Thou shalt not speak against the name of God. Thou shalt not go after a married woman. Thou shalt not steal the goods of any. Thou shalt not do any unjust thing. These are the 6 prospects which I heard in heaven from the sacrosanct. Vain of men are offerings to the winds on the altars of the mountain's base. Vain the trenches which your priests dig, that they may evoke spirits in their magical songs. Odious is the hand that wields the dart, that pierces the soft flesh of deer and hare. But the water lily brightens in the face of him who spares life. O sun, let this truth be graven on thy soul with thy adamantine pencil in living flame, that virtue alone is true happiness and vice is misery in all respects. That's basically saying here, yeah, freedom and virtue is happiness, and vice, oppression, control, is misery. Yeah. All vice is weak in its beginnings, but it grows until it's too strong for a mighty man. Then does it wax shameless before God and earth, so that there is no crime without an apologist. In the name of God there is a great mystery. It is not lawful to utter it except with holy purpose, in the morning hour, before the sun rises, and after he descends, before meals and before repose. That spirit go unto God, whose works are done for the sake of God, who esteemeth him in the Lord supreme, and himself his servant, and his alone. Beautiful and bright is the road that leads to heaven. A crystalline splendour of glory girds its round and its paven way. Of glittering light, sunbeams circle it, the stars illuminate it with lustre. But the evil behold it not. It is invisible to their gloomy eyes. It shines majestically in the rainbow's arch, but they behold only darkness and a void. There is a golden fire in the paradise land, through which pure spirits pass at every revolution of the sun. Hence they grow everlastingly bright, and glitter with the freshness of new flowers. But woe unto the thoughtless one, who, having lapsed even in the least degree of thought, enters into the heart of the golden fire. He ejected in agony and confusion. There is a starry fountain in the heavens, where the spirits of beauty bathe. Therein do they renew their youth, their brightness, and all that is divine. But woe unto that thoughtless one, who having lapsed, even in the least degree of thought, goes to that starry fountain. It becomes to him a well of liquid fire. Man cannot make himself wholly pure, though he laboureth thereunto night and day. Shall he then do nothing, or sit despondent? Yea, this is to make himself holy and pure. So it's saying, yeah, although we ain't pure and we can't make ourselves pure, we shouldn't stop attempting to do so. You know, we should always try to do better and do good. As the light that emanates from the sun diffuses happiness and radiance, so the love that emanates from God is the delight of the blessed in paradise. The pure angels of God are such that in one breath they traverse the sphere. They fly on lightning pinions, whichsoever there impels them. God loves to be veiled. He will not be seen by the profane. He enfolds himself in dazzling splendour. Who is worthy to look upon him? Eternal, invisible, all presiding, he is cognizable by no sense of man. He cannot be conceived even in the mind. He cannot be comprehended by aught that exists. Everything that hath life cometh from God, even from him who is the universal parent, and every living essence on the earth have written in the fire of everlasting life. So every essence on the earth that is within the fire of everlasting life. There is another and future sphere where all the good shall live in sunbeams. There is another and future sphere where all the bad shall weep in desolation. And as the harmony dwells within the flute, even so does the spirit unseen in the body. No man can see the music, yet it is there. Even so, no man see the spirit, yet it is there. All spirits pass into other appearances as soon as death hath operated on their bodies. Each taketh unto itself that form of existence of which its habitants and aspirations have prepared it. Let not a son sit in the presence of his father until he have received permission to do so. Let not a wise man receive a gift from the mean. There is pollution in the gold of the sordid. Before the rising of the sun, let no common language come from thy lips, but let thy thoughts meditate on holy contemplation, on him who maketh the sun to rise. Marriage is a sacred duty imposed on all. Let no strong man live in celibacy. Happy is he who leaves behind him a representative to fulfill the works which he has begun. Who is she that cometh not from the husband's bed, a virgin pure from all defilement? She shall be as foul polluted water. She shall not be worthy of his love. So it said that she that didn't come from the virgin. But the chaste wife is the honour of the family, she who presents the children. The wife is the man's earthly soul, his half, his best friend, the source of all his happiness. She, with her endearing conversation, is the friend in solitude, the mother to the oppressed, a refreshment of delight and comfort in the wearisome wilderness of life. Beautiful are the hands of that woman who weaves, who spins, who embroiders, who brings up her offspring with mutual love and tenderness, guarding each one as the apple of her eye. Reverence the Holy One. It is the first of all duties. It makes the heart pure. It restrains all evil passion. My son, revere the mighty. Fear none but him who fears not God. There is no wisdom but in virtue. The chief of fools in the impious man
Whoso worships self worships hell, but the worship of the Supreme is heaven. The wicked are in darkness, but to the pure there is an asylum of light. Swear not by the sacred name, nor give homage to the earthling. If thy spirit aspires not beyond the dust, thy future shall be with the dust. Study also to know God. If thou know him not, thou canst not know thyself. If mortals knew what come after, they would shrink with terror from sin. God is a shining mirror, in which the universe is imaged. Yea, and the smallest thing or sin in the universe is reflected there in clear light. Chapter 17. A Vision of the Mountains. Now, when I had uttered these words, I was borne upward in a whirlwind, and I was carried off westward. Many mysteries I beheld. The mountains of iron, a mountain of copper. Sorry, it was one mountain of iron. A mountain of copper, a mountain of silver, a mountain of gold, a mountain of fluid metal, and a mountain of lead. And I inquired of the lion, saying, What are these, which in secret I see? And I spake it, a horror passed over him, as a land rent by an earthquake. And he said, Those things which thou askest are laid up for one who shall come, who shall hold command over thine earth, and break the thrones of emperors. Wait, and the short time thou shalt know. Thou shalt read all that is in a book written. The secret hour shall be revealed, the hour which God hath appointed. Gold or silver shall not avail, nor an iron sword, nor a coat of brass, nor copper or lead or metal. Though the wicked put their hope in these, but each one of these mountains shall be a slave to him who goeth. To make men acknowledge truth, now bow before the world which he proclaims. Isn't that so true? That, in one form or another, everyone loves their metals, if it's in wealth or in technology or in tools or whatever. Yeah. O ye flame-girt mountains, with ancient trees like dark grey hair, whose streams like white sea foam, and glory breathing out of every pore. The sun balls of God within your dark cells dwell like lightnings hidden, and many mighty sage meditates long over the holy mystic. Therefore it is meet that your high presence I should bow and feel solemn influence. From thy recesses may come. One of the emperors of earth. Here were the Amrita lakes. Whoso drink shall shine forever. But over their flow a serpent watches. Terrible is his fate who approaches unworthily. The fountains change into devouring fires. The serpent grows into 1,000 forms. The sons of evil who come near the place are stricken as if with plague. They recede into the veil of darkness, impelled by violent blasts. They can no more taste these holy fountains than can a mortal live in fire. O ye waves and waters of beauty, gleaming like white-footed of heaven, my soul rises to ye, even as ye rise. I long to be commingled with ye. Over your crests the serpents glide. The fire-pinioned, they dip into your glowing beauty. From the touch draw new loveliness. They arise clothed in thunders from the mighty cauldrons of flame. Oh, that I could bathe but one moment within the bosom of your bright embrace. This hath the Lord of heaven said. A day shall come when the messenger shall be throned, when the pure shall be crowned with mitres, when they shall choose their own palaces. Blessed are they who trust in me, who have found their joy in the Father. The chosen shall dwell amid them. As a parent dwelleth with the children, I will adorn the glorious face of heaven, so as to give them new delights. I will bless it and clothe it in lustre, even for the sake of those divine ones, the spheres of earth also will I change, transforming them to light and loveliness, that my children may look upon them with new and raptured appetite. The sacred ones of the starry aspiration shall dwell in palaces of the stars, but the iniquitous, the followers of Satwanas, shall not see the renovated spheres. I have looked upon their daily lives. I see that they are dead men. To the unthinking they appear to live, but to the wise they are already dead. As a corpse moveth not among the quick, so neither can those whose nature is sensual abide among the active essences, or sojourn with the moving spirits of light. My son, hear the statutes of the Lord God, the statutes thou art commanded to fulfill, and ponder well in the truths that I reveal, meditating upon them as words of wisdom. Thou wert born in thy body of the earth, and to the earth thy body shall descend. Thou shalt leave behind thee all that perishes. Thou shalt carry with thee whatsoever is of heaven. That which men of earth covet dieth with them. It passes away, and is no more beheld. But that which the children of heaven have garnered passes with their spirits to the presence of God. The seas, the mountains, and the forests, the stars, the sun, the moon, shall pass away, but the deeds of a virtuous man shall never pass. Their loveliness shall shine everlastingly. Chapter 18. 7 Luminous Stars. Here also I looked upon the certain fountains, enshrined deep within the fiery columns of heaven, which embraced but did not scorch their cool beauty. Neither did the waters prevail over the flame. And in these columns of heaven I behold fires, which fell in showers of lustre, ever and ever, but neither on high, nor did they sink into the deep, nor did they descend to mingle in the mists. And over these fountains I perceived a vast, which had neither a firmament above it, or a shelter, or solid ground underneath, as it a stay, neither was there water near it, nor any winged thing. But all was wild, and desolate, and arid, an awful silent wilderness of vastation, thick with mists and black with vapours, swept with cold and poisonous blasts. There did I behold 7 luminous stars, like fire mountains, and like spirits entreating me. And the eagle said, This place, unto the end of all things, shall be the prison house of the fallen. The stars which roll headlong over the fires are the spheres of those who do transgress, who have disdained from the commandments of God, and ascended not in due season. They sank still lower into the lower deep, and for all their thoughts were carnal. The earthly cannot live in heaven, nor can the heavenly bide on earth. Therefore is the Lord offended with these spirits. They pass into the spheres of vastation. There shall they in winds and darkness until I think it's missing a word there. Darkness until the consummation in the secret year. And one of the spirits said to me, Wisdom is the sole splendour, and all foolishness is darkness, and all denial of the true is misery. Wisdom descended once to earth, but found no place whereon she could abide, her dwelling. Therefore heaven, yea, in the heavens of heavens, wisdom liveth. Wisdom went forth in the old days to dwell among the sons of men, but she found not even a roof tree under which to shield her head. Wisdom returned again heavenward, and seated herself before God. He gave unto her a throne beside himself. She dwells there with angels of beauty. Folly went forth and lighted on the earth. And in the days after wisdom left, she found a home with the sons of mortals. She changed their pastures to a wilderness. There doth folly evermore remain. Right things have their home in heaven, the dark dwell in the palaces on earth. So opposite are the good gods from men. Three spirits, streams of pure light, poured forth rays of sweetest song. They moved around a mystic vase that glowed with fragrant incense. In the centre of 12 trees it stood, burning like the universal mind, and fed by the divine springs that flowed from a cloud of lightnings. Whither than the morning star were they, beauteous as the virgins of the ocean. Their wings glistened with the sun foam. Their forms were pillars of splendour. From thence I passed along another place, terrible with the operation of great fires, blazing, glittering more fearfully than a comet, and in the midst thereof a vast division. Columns of flame struggled to the end of the abyss, and deep was the gulf in which they fell. But I could not see its extent or depth, neither could I perceive the place where it began. Thunders pealed over the wilderness, the flame-winged lightnings flashed, like the flight of spheres in battle. Even so was the rapid brightness. I heard a song of sorrows, the wailing of despair and death, lonely as the midnight wind amid 1,000 winding caves. Then did I cry out, how terrible is this spot! How hard to explore are all the recesses! Then one of the spirits who was with me answered thus in my mind, Enoch, why art thou alarmed at this place? Why doth the vastness of its torment scare thee? Lo, it hath been set apart for evildoers, who have rebelled against the all truth. Herein do they abide, while serving sin, because they mocked the statutes of the Eternal, because they bowed themselves in gloom into the evil passions of their nature. Then spake the lion, stoop not thyself, O son of man, unto the darkly splendid habits of earth, unto the darkly splendid baits of earth, for they will ensnare thy pure spirit, they will entangle it forever in destruction. But lift thyself upward to the heavens of God, the paradise of beauty, where he dwells. Therein no descent found, but all is bright loveliness. Seek not the darkness, O thou air of heaven, but hasten rather unto the everlasting light, which beams before the divine Father, who gave unto thee a spirit of reason. This spirit of light was given unto thee, a virgin clothed with the heavens. Take heed, I charge thee, that thou keep her pure, that thou preserve her from all stain. Let her be free from worldliness and sin, and as the snow upon the mountain top. Let her venerate the Lord God, and walk in his holy laws. As a harlot envious a virgin, so do the iniquitous hate the good. They deck themselves in gold and silver, and wag their tongues against the pure of heart. Every one of them hath given himself to gold. He painteth after it which all his heart. Cold as a rock of ice, and hard is the inner nature of each one. Here also rose a great mountain, with a narrow valley as its base, but towards the ends dark winding plains, and rocks black and savage. In these outspreading wastes, the whirlwinds bind up their wings. They wake, they rise, they issue forth like eagles ravening for food. And I wondered much at the valley and at the tree. Then I asked, what means this garden, and these trees, and this misty valley? And the star-clothed answered, saying, this valley is the land of the accursed. Here shall be collected all who are blasphemed, speaking the glorious in impious language. Here shall they be finally gathered. Here shall they be accursed territory. They shall be as an example of divine justice to the pure, whose righteousness shall shine forever. Tremble not, he said, but the coldness of ice stole me over. Oh, that I could hide myself beneath the covert of yonder cavern. Tremble not, he said, thou art the messenger. Yet the ice of death was over me, as I saw these sights most terrible, the children of dark clouds, who live in sin, who died in guilt. Hast thou more feeling for them than God? I was abashed, I died away in shame. Then did I question the spirit. Why are they separated by these fiery zones? And still their voices rose in accusation, and they wept in tears of blood. Then did he make answer. 3 are the separations that divide the pure from the unrighteous. The first, a gulf, a chasm of darkness. The second is an ocean of deep waters. The third, a fire, which a fierce meteor shines 10,000 leagues above that ocean. For as the earth, the dead are buried in graves. But as to the separated from the living men, so here the wicked one. Sorry, it's getting hard for me to read and it's getting a bit dark. I'll probably just finish on this chapter and carry on a bit later, tomorrow morning. Thus separated, they abide in suffering, everlastingly curse one another. Thus have it been from the beginning, and thus shall it be continue until the end. In the secret day, their living essence shall not suffer annihilation, neither shall they be able to soar unto the light. Their earthly nature drags them down, but in this gulf, and amidst the desert which they daily fabricate for themselves, they shall abide in the darkness of slime, in the darkness which they have always loved. For as the bird cannot mount in air of it, shall have lost its light wings, neither can they ascend, weighed down by their own sin, which hangs upon them like lead upon their souls. Behold, this is an eternal ordinance, the ordinance of nature, truth and justice. The pure shall rise to the sun, the impure shall be forever clogged. But their abiding place is not here always. They are not claimed for ever in darkness. An hour of liberation is for all. Then they issue forth and assume form. They pass into the spheres of life, for which they accord in temper. They take upon themselves a new development, in conformity with their real nature. A sunbeam of light, and behold, I was in another place. I heard the winds die away, in a dream of forests and dark woodlands. A sparkling sea of fire and quivering brightness, and in the vista dark form. The sovereign Lord, the Supreme Father, covered with 10,000 veils of flashes, did I see that venerable form? I could not penetrate the 3 zones. The waters of a deluge seemed to cover me. They whirled me along in the darkness. Be not sad, O messenger, child of the 2 births. The sun's steeds cannot bear thee beyond the roaring waves of yonder flame. Next bit's the 2nd psalm. O thou, supreme being, eternal, ineffable, and incomprehensible, hearken unto thine humble child, who longs to be conjoined with thee in spirit. Thou art the all-perfect, the self-existent fountain of all existence. Thou art thyself above all essences, more beautiful in thy lustre than all beauty. Thou art the truth, but more sublime than the truth. Thou art the wisdom, but more exalted than all wisdom. Thou art the good, but more excellent than all goodness. For thou art the principle and the first of all these, as the sun is the principle of light, so to the wandering spheres that revolve around him. So art thou unto all the spirits that have emanated from thy flame bright as a centre, omniscient, omnipresent, and all-powerful, who is worthy to be adored. But thou, infinite thou art, and comprehensest all things, but thou thyself incomprehensible by all. Thou art the giver of all goodness, thou art the source of all that is divine. Thou art the rest of all that is most righteous in the heavenly spheres, which do revolve before thee. As the morning light upon the earth, so thine halo presence to the spirit as a golden vesper star. So is thy sacred aspect unto the spirit eye. Thou art the sole creator, the sovereign ruler of the universe, the judge all perfect and all knowing, who mettest out thine equity to the worm of the earth. Be thou only guide and guardian, who art the common parent of all, who bestowest all that is most excellent, the sweetness of peace, the purity of innocence. Preserve us, Lord, that we may love thee. Guide us, Father, that we may walk in thy paths, ever aspiring upward unto thee as the flowers that grow heavenward.
Chapter 19. A Vision of the Magnet. God, by his Spirit, raised me up into a place where was the appearance of gleaming fires. And when they pleased, they assumed the shapes of men, men of majesty and heroic beauty. They bear me onwards to a lofty height, to a mountain which reached the Empyrean. This magnet is Mount Meru in the centre, and I imagine what the Empyrean, Empyrean, might be the firmament above the magnet. I don't know, just guessing at that point. There did I behold the receptacles of thunders, at the extremities of the place where the gulf was deepest. And each one had in his hand a bow of fire, and arrows in the shining quiver, a sword of fire and an armour of pure flame, and lightnings terrible in brightness. Then they lifted me to living waters, waters of life that spake audibly, and to a flame which caught the setting of the sun, and from which the sun drew new blood. I surveyed the magnet which supports the world. So when it's saying that the sun is drawing blood from the magnet, you know, it's spirit of life. So the spirit is in the blood. So the life is in the blood. So when it's saying it here, it's saying that, you know, it's the magnet that makes the sun go round. The four winds which bear up the corners of the earth, which flash and lightning like living spirits, and weave amid the heavenly firmament. I beheld also winds which live in the Empyrean, and how they rise between heaven and earth. Great they were, armed with thunders, constituting the pillars of the universe. I saw the winds also which make the skies revolve, which cause the phantoms of light to rise and set. I saw winds which waft the clouds, guiding them like ships in their paths. I saw the Broadway of the spirits of light, paved with the brilliance of 10,000 suns. I perceived at the earth's border the glittering cope, extending far, a veil star-studded. Then did I pass onward to the south, where burnt 6 mountains formed with gems. 3 there were towards the east, and 3 stretched towards the south. Those towards the east were of varied brightness, and one was marguerite and one opal. Those towards the south were scarlet in splendour. The middle rose like a throne of God. It was all one fair and lucid jasper. The highest peak was of clear sapphire, beauty embodied like a radiant form. On the Supreme Lord, the ruler of light, and all over like a curtain of fire, a blazing light rolled in golden waves. In golden waves and starry billows it rolled, more gloriously divine than sunset. And there I looked upon the place of loveliness, where lucent waters were collected into lakes, glittering over tracts of the angelic, like the moon's sphere in the purple. I've never seen the moon purple before. Lightnings flashed out of these mountains. Their flames rose on high. The clouds brightened. The stars were seen. Eagles of fire whirled and whirled around. Mystic voices echoed on all sides. Worship God alone. He is the Holy One of Years. He is the sole Ancient. O Amun, Ul Om, Osiris, Adon, Bel. O raiser of the mighty hymn, in the star hour, worship him only. Excuse me. Chapter 20. A vision of the Son of Man. There, but far off, did I behold the King of Spirits, whose head was like the snows. Near him stood another one, whose face resembled that of man. His countenance was full of grace, as is the countenance of a Holy Spirit. In his hand he bare thunders, and lightnings flashed in his feet. Then I inquired of one of the spirits, and I questioned about this Son of Man, who he was, and whence he was, and why he was beside the Ancient of Days. He made answer unto me, saying, This is the Son to whom truth belongs, in whose heart also wisdom dwelleth. He reveals hidden things. For the Lord of Spirits have allowed unto him the privilege of high embassy. He is the morning star, whose advent is a source of joy. And this Son of Man, on whom thou lookest, shall raise up kings from their beds. He shall awaken great ones on their thrones. He shall curb the bridles of the haughty. He shall break the teeth of sinners. He shall cast down monarchs from their seats, they who have refused to own a God. Excuse me. They who have disdained to humble themselves. Upon the faces of giants he shall tread, until they shall be filled with confusion. He shall trample. He shall cover them with shame. They shall lie in a pit of dishonour. Darkness shall be their dwelling place, on scorpions shall be their bed. Neither shall they again rise up among men, but shall be hidden away for ages. They honoured not the name of the Father, they blasphemed the Beautiful One. They lifted up their hands and wagged their heads against the Holy One of Heaven. They crushed the people to dust and showed their iniquity to the sun. In evil only were they strong, and lo, they deceived them to destruction. Their faith also was in idols made by the hands of slaves. They denied that God was ruler. They expelled the holy from the temples. They persecuted those who remained faithful, who bear the name within their hearts. But the prayer of the good and true goes up to the portals of the Lord. The blood of the righteous ascends from earth into the presence of the King of Spirits. It have a voice, a never ceasing voice, that penetrates unto the Judge of all. The holy of heavens meet together and raise hymns of praise and supplication. They call upon the sacred Lord of justice to look upon the blood of the slain, that the prayers of the pure may not be wind, but may avail unto the salutary purpose, that patience may not endure forever, nor the wicked prevail over the good. So for Enoch to be bringing all this up, it's like this was the first reset where he went through what we're kind of going through in this way now, where the oppressors are, just going full out insane. Anyway. From the night, we seemed to pass into dawn. Its crystal beam shone over distant lakes. Many beautiful ones floated on the waves, burnished as the seraphim of varied light. They were crowned with shining helmets. Their feet and shoulders bare wings. They moved in happiness and beauty, and sang amid the intermingling stars. Follow, follow the primary fountains, and have their waves renew loveliness. There are the springs of youth immortal, which the dragons and the eagles guard. Behold, the Ancient of Days is on his throne, the throne of glory and light. Before him shall the book be opened, wherein are the written supreme laws, and all the splendours of the heaven of God, and all the powers that be above the heaven, and all the living ones and pure intelligences shall stand around the thrones of judgment. Then shall the hearts of the good rejoice, for the day of consummation hath arrived. The prayer of the saints hath been heard. The blood of the righteous hath not sued in vain. The march of guilt triumphant in its course, it stayed by a hand of lightnings, and the unchanging institutes of God pronounce the doom of the oppressor. Then shall arise the fountain of righteousness, the fountain from the wells of wisdom. The thirsty shall drink and enjoy knowledge. They shall dwell with the paradise ones. In that hour shall the Son of Man stand forth before the shining Lord of Spirits, and his name shall be pronounced aloud in the presence of the Ancient of Days. Before the sun and the signs were ordained, on their courses were made for them. Before the sun and the signs were ordained, all the courses were made for them. Before the stars of heaven were formed, or light heard a command. The secret of the Son of Man was known in the heart of the Lord of Spirits. He shall be a support for all the righteous, to lean upon him without stumbling. He shall be the light of nations, and the hope of all who are in trouble. All who dwell on earth shall wait for him, and do the things that he ordains. They shall bless the Lord who sent him. They shall sing to the King of Spirits. Wouldst thou know his name? Soshiosh, the Saviour, is his name. His presence on the earth of man is as the presence of the morning light. From God's presence did he go forth, a messenger unto the spears of sorrow. He shall exist forever when his work is done. He shall be in the presence of the Master. He was concealed in God's splendour, but he came forth from the Holy One, to reveal the institutes of the Spirit Lord. To those who pined in darkness or pined in darkness, from the first he did exist in secret. He was hidden, the concealed one. Not even to the cherub splendours was his mystic name known. He bears the sceptre of command. He bears the sword of conquest. Let the whole earth bow down. Its pontiff and its lord appears. In the days when this apostle cometh, the kings and mighty ones of clay, who have gained their thrones by guilt, shall be abashed before the divine messenger. Who shall save their souls from death? Who but he whose mission is of God? Like hay in fire and lead in water are the natures of the evil-hearted. They burn in the presence of the pure. They sink down before the holy ones. Neither shall a tenth part of them be found, or saved from the universal wreck. The sword of the Lord of Spirits shall be drunken with their impure blood. The envoys shall bear them to punishment, to the retribution due to guilt. Darkness gathered around us. Even the starry chair was lost in mist. Mist and clouds revolved like wheels. Ether, fire, and water mingled. A mountain cloud, veiling every star, rose like a whirlwind. Thunders rolled, lightnings glittered, yet still we passed along. 12 stones rising up like pillars. I could discern amid the glancing fires, girdled the wall of unhewn rock. On every stone, semblance of a splendour. Chapter 21. A vision of the rivers of fire. And after these things I was transfused, ascending far into the heavens. I beheld the sons of the celestial spheres, treading gloriously on flames of fire. Their garments were pure white, their faces were transparent amber. I saw 2 rivers of fire glittering like hyacinth, and I fell on my face before the Lord of Spirits. One of the star-clothed took me by the hand. He raised me up. He brought me to the mercy seat. He showed me all the hidden mysteries, the receptacles of the stars, their fiery splendours, the light wherein they did go forth in flame, from before the faces of the divine, and he concealed me in the morning star. After that I beheld a vision of light, a palace raised with stones of diamond. And in the midst of the eye-dazzling stones I beheld tongues of living flame. And as I looked upon the orbit of this house of fire, I saw at one of its extremities there were rivers full of flaming fires, which ran around the encircling it on all sides. After this, I saw another heaven. So that's when it's talking about the mansion, it's talking about the actual realm, like Earth is our realm. After this, I saw another heaven, a paradise of multiform mansions, and the divisions of a celestial city, and an order of spirits different from the others. I saw the measure of all human actions as they were judged by the wise and pure, differing much from the standard of the unwise. As it's set up as a guide to mortals, I also saw palaces of the pure intelligences, ever-flashing halls and temples, beauty that cannot be described, glory that cannot be painted. From thence I went towards the extremities of the sphere. There saw I many living creatures. Sorry, I just go back to that page quickly. So is this talking about the new heaven where he saw different saw another heaven, a paradise, multiform mansions. So multiform mansions, is this talking about where in that realm there are people from different realms like communicating and living together? So on Earth you would imagine it like you were living with the angels and you could see the angels, like everyone could. So that's what I believe that might be saying. There I saw many living creatures. They were unlike aught I had ever seen, and each was different from the other, and wing shapes various in forms, and with the voice of many changing melodies, and they dwelt around silver waterfalls. Mystic were the echoes of that region, and looking eastward I perceived the boundaries of the vast and flame-girt flower sphere, impassable oceans of rolling light, into which the gardens of heaven extended not. The gates of heaven stood wide open. I saw the stars come forth. I numbered the celestial ministers as they issued from the vast portal. I wrote them down according to their order. Their names also did I record. I marked the times and seasons while the children of paradise waved their wings. The spirits who were with me named them, hailing each new splendour by its title. Mighty they were, their works were mighty. They were messengers whom God sends forth. From thence I advanced onwards, in a mist of fire up to the north, to the terrestrial points of this immense sphere. There I beheld a glorious wonder. From there I saw the heavenly gates, which led direct to a celestial. Immense in fearful magnitude and beauty, the ever-flashing lightnings wreathed them. 3 of them were open and distinctly marked. From these tempests did rush forth, bearing on wings of darkness, cold and hail, and frost and snow. Dew also and rains they carried, and the flame of the fierce fire, which blew violently from the haughty gates upon the terrestrial things. They swept them headlong into the ruin. The wind Sendo was there, dreadful with fiery whirling wings, as the collected force of many tempests. Nothing of a sensual or carnal nature, such as children of sin are, could stem that irresistible torrent. They were hurled headlong into wilderness. But the children of purity felt it not. They passed through the cataract of flame, gliding with an easy motion, as fishes glide through billows. So this flame, it's spoken about in different scriptures, like when Adam and his sons were on the mountain and they came down and slept with the daughters of Cain. They went to go back over the mountain, which I believe was the ring of mountains around the continents of the North Pole. And when they went to go back over, the mountains were like fire and they weren't able to return because they'd sinned. And also when I think, like, when I listen to people that have descriptions of dying and coming back to life, and some of them that they talk about going through water, like they're travelling through water, and sometimes fire. That could be the firmament. So when your spirit passes on from your body, it's said that all spirits go before the great throne of God for judgment, and then you either remain there or you cast away down in confusion, and you'll go up through the water, and if you're found if you're forgiven by God for your sins and taken back to heaven, you'll just walk through the door on the left, and if you're not, if you've been a sinner and you haven't done anything to glorify God or believe in Him, then you go to the right, and you'll sink through that water that you just rose up, which is the firmament, and then it will be like fire on your way back down. From this place I wandered on to the extremities of the sphere westward, wherein also I did behold heavenly gates open. No, I haven't read this bit. They were as those which I had seen before, beaming like suns in the far north, and from these also rushing oceans of winds and wonders flashed. Then we went onward to another region, where I saw the west a holy mountain, a strong mountain, and a vast and 4 delightful places like gardens. Internally it was deep, broad, and smooth, as if it had been shaped by a heavenly hand. It was great and beautiful to look upon, and my heart melted away. And the lion spirit who was with me said, "These are the dwellings of the pure in heart, for such they were made. Here shall they be gathered. These bowers shall be theirs until the secret day." So that's potentially Abraham's bosom. It's a place where people go until Judgment Day. I know there are some people out there that think that after Yeshua came, then if you die after that, then you go straight to heaven, whereas between Adam until Yeshua, when you died, you went down into the earth. And some say that now Yeshua has risen, that when you die, if you're one of Christ, you rise. I don't know. I'm not saying that I know, but I don't know. But as far as I'm aware, when Christ comes for the harpazo, he'll be taking people that are alive and dead. Then in the rapture, in the mid-trib rapture, when he comes for his witnesses, there'll be another rapture then. And then obviously he says that who's alive when he returns is blessed, of his own, of course, and there'll be more of his own that have died in that second half of the Great Tribulation. So yeah. From these depths of fire I speak unto mortals, and from the heart of glowing streams. Beautiful are the strains I hear. I seek to waft their echoes unto earth. O men, venerate God. He alone is worthy of supreme devotion. In his mighty hand he wields the vast and unbound starry universe. He holds the measuring line. The sun beams out of his eyes. The whitely foaming sea is his. The winds come and go as he commands. His song goes forth over the cosmos. It is the great song of songs. Blessed are they who, in the blasts and storms, hear and recognize that mystic melody. All would perish were it not near. He it is who guides the wanderer. Who rules it by shining nights of night? Who holds it by golden Lord of day? Blessed be this great and holy one, unto everlasting age of ages. Let all the living and all the dead bow down and join in worship of his name. Chapter 22. The Celestial Lands. Many are the mansions in the kingdom of heaven, celestial spheres more gorgeous than the sun, wherein the spirits of divine love dwell, as thou mayest see the fruits upon spreading tree. And there are angelical spheres of light, more radiant than the rainbow's orb, wherein the loveliness of God is felt by all who are inhabitants thereof. And into these ascend spirits of men who pass from earth in purity and truth, who have aspired after wisdom of God, and clothed their souls in wisdom. Man, when first he passeth out of human life, awakens as if from a clouded dream. A glory of celestial splendour surrounds him. He dreams that he is in a vision of beauty, but opening his eyes and stretching forth his limbs, he finds that he is a living spirit. He sees his soul around him like a garment, but he is wholly destitute of that corporal body. And he is sorely troubled and affrighted. He knows not whither he is going. He feels himself wafted on a wind. But lifting up his ever pure thoughts to the most high God of his adoration, who hath been unto him while in the flesh his Father, his Comforter, his Guide, he becomes filled with the heavenly peace. He perceives a harmony in all his sensations. His soul and spirit glide like a musical hymn through the sea of sparkling bliss. Then does he look upon the surrounding objects. He sees them distinctly in their pure light, revealed in sun and star shine, like the flashing gleams of the firmament, and ever as the celestial splendours beam from above, bright and more bright, and his chaste thoughts are uplifted to his Father. The high, the holy, and the divine, he beholdeth around him like a circle of sunbeams, a beautiful choir of sacred spirits, from whose most glowing presence is effused a perfume sweeter than violets, spirits of love, spirits of truth, spirits of knowledge, spirits of wisdom, spirits of charity, spirits of pureness, spirits of light, and spirits of God. From thence transcendent forms is poured forth, a radiancy so divine and dazzling that it outshines the eyes of the sun, when they glow with hottest beam. And these spirits by celestial nature behold the very essence of man. They penetrate the recesses of his inward thoughts. They know at a glance all his desires, and unto these, according to their properties, the blessed spirits incline themselves, for the spirits of love conjoin with him, whose spirit have ever been founded in love. And the spirits of truth conjoin with him, whose spirits have ever been founded in truth. And the spirits of charity welcome him, whose spirit have ever been founded in charity. For like seeketh, its like in heaven, even as like seeketh its like on earth. And the pure avoid the opposite to purity, in the celestial as well as in the terrene spheres. Therefore, whatsoever virtue man soweth in his frail and transitory life of clay, the same reapeth he 1,000-fold when he transmigrates into the heavenly life. For the mystic symphony which pervades the universe immediately unites him to those that he resembles. So when the final trumpet's blown and God raises up his people and he sees them, we see him for we are like him. So for the mystic symphony which pervades the universe, so when God speaks, it will be felt and heard by all. So like when bass is played, it's oh bugger. Yeah, so like when bass is played, you can hear it and you can also feel it, and as the frequency is reduced and it's a lower level of hertz, then you feel it more than you hear it. It gets to a point where it's beyond your audible range, and you can feel it within your chest. So when the Lord, when the final trumpet's blown, or the Lord calls his people, then those that have got him in spirit will change, and the frequency, the audible and feeling frequency, will cause them to grow in splendour like God, I suppose. I lost my spot now. Yeah. When he transmigrates into the heavenly life, for the mystic symphony which pervades the universe immediately unites him to those which he resembles, and the antipathy that exists between light and its opposite detaches from him aught that is not in unison with his desires. And all the dwellers in those blessed places participate in the beatitude of the newly come, perceiving an increase in their own happiness. By the happiness of this new member of their circle, then do the spirits ascend into a glorious paradise. There are trees of an everlasting loveliness, green and lofty and widely spreading, flowering with many thousand blossoms. There are bowers of delicious verdure, and herbage fragrant with the breath of morning, and fountains purer than the crystal spark flow in melody around those trees, and choirs of innumerable of angelic spirits brighter than light glide amid the paradise, breathing music, effusing beauty, and linked like starry constellations. 1,000 rainbows glitter in the firmaments and display their many shining colours. Lightnings vibrate along the ground like streams of running water. The mansions in this heavenly land gleam with many treasures. They are made of precious stones. They are encrusted with golden flowers. They are sealed and paved with diamond, and the glitters with sunform irradiations, which change 1,000 times a minute, more splendid than auroral light. The loveliness of these celestial places is in harmony with the loveliness of the spirits, who in purity abide therein, aspiring ever after more seraphic places. For as virtue is the most beautiful of all things, the transcendent image of God himself, therefore is it agreeable to the laws of justice that these mansions should be worthy of the spirits. Thus as the palaces of paradise are magnificent, and not void of vacant atmosphere, for the dwellings of the heavenly beautiful are like themselves heavenly beautiful also. Think not that spirits wander at random, as some do heedlessly suppose, flying through vast and empty air for no fixed purpose, and with no certain home. But this indeed is not the condition of the blessed. Their places are majestic structures. They have gardens, rivers, and fountains, and all things are in harmony with their greatness. And some are of a snow-white diamond like truth, and some of a transparent emerald like wisdom. For the God-like dwell in all God-like places, whose brightness is a symbol of their indweller. Thus the intelligences of the super-celestial know at a glance the properties of the inhabitants by their star-bright aspect of their homes, and the appearances that correspond therewith, and even so, in like manner, the habitations of the wicked correspond with the wicked. For fallen spirits congregate together, according to their various tempers and qualities. Thence emerging in the cyclic period, they become again conjoined with the souls of bodies, passing into spheres of existence, from which they must arise, or lapse lower still. But many are the years of their wanderings before they are united with the physical form. Therefore the Satwanas herd together in chaotic places without a glimmer of light, for as vice is the most detestable of all things, delighting in blood and filthiness and falsehood, hating all light and burrowing in the darkness, and odious in its conceptions and designs, even so the mansions of the Satwanas, wholly analogous to their evil properties, and they are like clouds of dust, destitute of all power or strength or vigorousness. The universal law of God, that like shall follow after like, extends itself into those regions, which assimilate themselves to their inhabitants, for no gleam of light shines there, but all is mist and gloom perpetually, consonant with the qualities of the wicked, whose minds are nests of scorpions, and as the consciences of wicked men on earth present before the dreadful phantoms and terrible shapes and fantasies and forms arise from the fumes of their guiltness, haunting them in sleep and in the twilight hour, with many threatening shapes and gestures. The offspring of gloomy imagination
that fears yet cleaves to the illusion. Even so, in those chaotic places, the conscience-stricken wanderers of sin generate for themselves evil sights and appearances corresponding to the sinfulness of their natures. These appearances exist not in reality, for God creates no monsters, but unto disordered minds of the fallen they appear in the vividness of life. This is the state of that which is called hell, which God indeed hath not formed, neither banished he his spirits thereunto, but their evil tendencies gather them together, and their evil natures generating dreams, horrible and dark, and breathing torture, surround them with the most lacerating agonies. Not less terrible because self-inflicted, these Satwanas are wholly without power. They are confined within their own spheres, neither can one arise therefrom until the cycle have rolled through its years. Then they assume souls or bodies, and are again developed in existence, to raise themselves or plunge again into the ocean, their self-made darkness. Have a break because my throat's hurting a bit. Chapter 23, The Holy Mountain. From thence I went to another place, far towards the west, near the end of the sphere. There did I behold a fire blazing, a rolling, burning torrent of flames. It ceased not in its course by day, nor did the night stay its mighty current, but ever like the ocean stream it flowed, and its roar was the roar of an elephant. Then did I inquire, saying, What is this which ceases not? And one of the Holy Spirits answered, whispering low into mine ear, The fire which runs forever to the west is the funtal fire for the luminaries of heaven. They drink its brightness and are renewed. They feed on ever-flashing flame. I went from thence to another region, and I saw a mountain from which fire flowed, ever burning, never ceasing. The skies were lighted by its splendours. I went near, and I saw 7 other mountains, each differing from each in grandeur, of brilliant gems, beautiful and precious, all magnificent and gorgeous to the eye. These mountains rose in the eastern quarter, piled like clouds, one upon the other. 3 mountains uplifted themselves to the south, welded together in a similar manner. Deep valleys wound their way between, separated by limpid rivers. And the mountain of fire was in the midst, and all were as the arch of a throne. Odoriferous trees grew thickly over them, and there was one tree of divine fragrance. Nor was there in the whole paradise garden a perfumed tree which smelt like this. Its leaf, its flower, its bark never withered. Its fruit was beautiful as the stars, and gathered like the clustering palm, which welcomes the desert wanderer. Its leaves were emeralds set in gold. Its fruit was honey wine and roses. Looking upon it, I cried out, How goodly is this blooming tree! Then did one of the spirits say, Why art thou delighted in this tree? And why art thou inquisitive to know it? Thou hast passed by many things without inquiry, but this has roused thy wonder. Then did I reply, saying, Concerning all things I desire knowledge, but most of all concerning this tree, whose beauty is more blooming than the sun. He answered, saying, Yonder mountain, whose peaks are like the thrones of God, shall be the seat whereon shall sit the Holy One, when he shall arise to visit the earths. And that tree of an exquisite fragrance, breathing not a breath of carnal odour, shall not be touched of any until the secret day, when it shall be given to the sons of heaven. Its essence shall be bestowed upon the blessed, for spirit life within this holy place shall flower forever as in a garden, planted northward in the King of unto the King of heaven, the Lord of life and beauty everlasting. Then shall they greatly rejoice in the Holy One. An odour of delight shall pass through them. They shall exist in life of light. The odour of delight shall pass through them. This is, in my perspective, and I could be wrong, but
what I picture when I read that is the being raised to the clouds to meet Yeshua and seeing him for what he is, because we will be like him. So for that moment to occur, for us to be given, be blessed with the new bodies, the new forms, that will occur in a spiritual description of how it will happen is, an odour of delight shall pass through them. So when that trumpet is blown and that frequency is made, those that have delighted in following Christ and proclaim him as King of the universe, ultimately, they will get this odour of delight pass through them. They will feel, for lack of a better explanation, they will ascend in their spirits within the body that they're in at the time, and whether they take that body with them or not, I don't know. Anyway, nor shall the sorrow darken their days, and I bless the Lord eternal in the heavens, because he had prepared this paradise tree, to give to the beautiful as their food, when he shall reveal himself in pure light. O man, what is the end of all thy labour, and all thy trouble after golden treasures? A short and transitory and vain enjoyment, and then thou art snatched from them forever. Would the wise man toil for prizes such as these, achieved by great labour, and when achieved laid down, would he link his spirit and body to corruption? For things that endure but a brief moment, of course not. But thou uplift thy thoughts above the fading earth, contemplate in sublime dream the God of heaven, prepare thy spirit for its future existence, when it hath wakened from the swoon of mortality. Once again, so this is like I've mentioned in videos for a while now, and lots of different videos, that if you look at this, like we're the characters in the Xbox, and our spirit, our higher self, is ultimately trying to control us, but spirit and flesh oppose each other. So that's the struggle of life, to overcome the flesh, to hear the spirit. Contemplating sublime dream, the God of heaven, prepare thy spirit for its future existence, when it hath wakened from the swoon of mortality. The term of thine existence approaches fast, and death, the end of all things, is close at hand. Awake, arise, before the final blow be struck. For in the grave there is no hope. The most exquisite delight of worldly enjoyment is like a draught of sea-water to the thirsty. But the calmly flowing happiness of eternity may be thine if thou wilt live a child of God. O God, thou art a great mystery, yet still shall I adore thee alone. Unto thee my spirit turns, whitely shining amid the fire. The bright gleam of thy glory lights in the universe. All other lights are but shadows. Thy voice sounds, and like a mighty trumpet, its godlike energy commands the all. Look upon this ethereal tree, he said once more. It flowers in pure gold, in the rustling air. It blossoms lovely in the moon, as the moon. It branches like clear crystal. Hearken as its leaves sing like harp strings gently touched by the wind. Beams of fire flashed out of its trunk and glide around its gnarled roots. Oh, how blessed of God are they, who dwell forever in the shade of this tree, and sing and dance within its circle, and pour the hymn of praise. Illusion clouds them not, nor does the mist of doubt assail them. The holy shine on them with faces of love. They breathe a most serene light. Chapter 24. The Vale of Sweet Waters. From thence I proceeded to the middle sphere, and I beheld a happy and fertile garden. The trees continually sprouted new branches, and clustering wreaths of delicious fruitage. There I saw a sacred mountain, and under it, on the east, were sweet waters, which flowed like light unto the golden-coloured south, making in their course divine melody. I saw also in the east another mountain, tall and stately as the first. It rose into flashing sky like a minaret of God's house. Between both there were deep valleys, through which also waters flowed, onward ever to the western side, where they blended in one mighty lake. White as the foam of seas, I saw the waving wings of cherubim. Their feet were clothed in thunders, and so they rolled in light. The seven in darkly blue chain passed, and reared the shining spears. They gleamed, they flashed like flowers in lakes. The war cloud covered them. Mighty were they who passed. They carried stars like torches. Their robes glittered like the sea waves, when the full splendour of the sun illuminates them. But on their fires were golden swords, and on their heads were helmets of diamond. They shone like the wandering lights of the north, the mystic, the inexplicable flasher. Thence I proceeded southward in my flight to the extremities of this mighty sphere. There also I beheld 3 heavenly gates. Their stupendous portals were wide open, blazing torrents rushed through them with rapid flight as if in fear, and out of every leaping eddy flashes of lightning gleamed. Thence also I proceeded quick to the extremities of the sphere outwards. There were 3 heavenly gates, wide open to the orient. Within them I saw 3 smaller gates, of an exquisite and perfect beauty. Through these spirits of heaven passed, proceeding by a path which they alone saw. They were brighter than stars in their light, and they were resplendent as pure morning air. And when I saw them, I adored God for the celestial vision which he showed. Every time I saw them, my heart panted with a rapture of thanks to the Lord of glory, who had formed these splendid signs, that they might show the magnitude of his works, that all in heaven and under heaven might know and glorify his creation, that all who do behold his power may ever bless his holy name. Amen. Chapter 25. The Ascension of the 7 Heavens. After these things I was alone amid the flashing orbs. I was wrapped in mystic thought as I floated in the seas of stars, in the sea of stars. Then I saw an angel of brightness, whose glory exceeded that of the sun. He came and seized me by the hand, and said, Who art thou? And what is thy name? And he said, Rise up. And I said, Whither wilt thou cause me to ascend? And he said, When I have shown thee 3 visions, then shalt thou understand who I am. For the 7th heaven above the sun, I have descended into this sphere, that I may raise thee before the faces of him whom the universe delights to look upon. Then we arose into the ether. We saw the dwellers of that place. In many things it corresponded with the earth of mortals, for all that is beneath is a counterpart of what is on high. Then we arose farther into the 1st heaven. There I beheld a throne in the mist, and spirits were upon the right hand and the left, and they glorified him who sat on the throne. And I looked as if I could behold any sitting there, but a splendour of light was over and about it, and I could not see any form. And I heard the music of those who glorified. Then I said unto the angel, To whom is this praise addressed? He answered, To the splendour who is in the 7th heaven. He is here, but he is not visible. And also to the beloved one who have sent me unto thee. Then he raised me higher still, into the 2nd heaven, separated from the 1st heaven, as far as the earth also is separated from it. There I beheld a throne. Beautiful spirits were on the right and on the left, and the splendour dazzling to behold. Wrapped the throne in star clouds. Great was the majesty of the 2nd heaven, and the splendour of its angels tenfold. And I fell upon my face to worship the splendour, but the angels suffered me not, saying, Worship not the visible, nor the throne through of the celestial brightness. Reserve thy homage for him alone, whom thou shalt see in the time to come. For above all the heavens and their angels that throne is placed. There it is vow and crown. These thine eyes thou shalt behold. Think not that thou shalt see him face to face, for they who love him rise up in his presence. The Holy Spirit, the loved one, beareth them, even in her bosom before the Supreme Lord. Then he raised me higher still, into the third heaven of all beautiful light. There also were innumerable angels, upon the right hand and upon the left. They raised hymns of praise before the Lord of beauty, whom they worshipped. Invisible was he amid the splendour. I saw only light immeasurable, no record of earthly things, no remembrance of the body is there. It's a pure heaven of crystallite. It's a world of immortal splendours. Then did he say unto me, When thou shalt have come to the seventh heaven, then shalt thou know that there is nothing hidden from the thrones and the celestial messengers. Then he uplifted me upward still, until we stood on the fourth heaven of the sphere. It was far above the third heaven, as the first was far above the earth. There also was divine ones upon the right and left of the throne. They sang, they glorified the invisible presence, who veiled the throne in glory. After that he lifted up me to the fifth heaven. The angels were more beautiful than all the others, but the splendour on the throne exceeded that of the angels. As much as they exceeded mere men, then did I glorify him who hath no name, the Almighty in the high heavens, who transmits his glory from heaven to heaven, clothing his angels in splendour. Then he raised me to the sixth heaven, where I saw an ether brightest of all. The radiance that was in the heaven I had last seen was night compared to this. Here the angels shine with lustre, a holy splendour, and a throne also was here. I said unto the angel who conducted me, What is this which I behold, my lord? He answered and said, I am not thy lord, I am a spirit like thyself, appointed to conduct thee to these places, that thou mightest behold the majesty of the king. For beyond this place lives he who is never named, with his spirit whose name is unrevealed, with his messenger who goeth forth, and of whom the universe knoweth not. God alone is thy Lord. His voice the heavens, the powers do obey. Thou shalt see him visibly before thee, in the midst of his heavens and his thrones. When from the mortal body which thou bearest, thou shalt ascend in spirit before him. Then shalt thou assume the bright raiment. Then shalt thou be like the messengers. And I glorified God there with his spirits amid a radiant atmosphere of splendours. Yea, even the brilliancy of the five heavens was a darkness to the brilliancy of this. Then he raised me to the seventh heaven, and I heard a voice which froze my soul. Whither would the dweller among the strangers ascend? And I feared and trembled greatly. And while I trembled, lo, a mighty voice, it said, It is permitted that he ascend. Then we went into the seventh heaven, where I saw spirits in the paradise splendour. There were all holy ones of God, spirit unclothed in flesh. I viewed them in their celestial garments, and assembled them in splendour and divineness. And while I was yet gazing upon them, one of the beautiful spirits, who was nigh, came unto me and showed me books. And they were not as the books of men. And he opened the books before me, and they contained writings, but unlike the writings of men. But unlike the writings of the earth. And he read the institutes of heavenly truth, and the records of holy things. Then I beheld one standing, whose glory exceeded the glory of all the others. And all the saints and spirits of that place advanced towards this one, reverent with awe. Then this one became changed, and appeared like a divine being. And the angel said, Venerate. And I venerated, and beheld the type of many wonderful things revealed. And while I venerated this spirit, behold, I saw another glorious being, more beautiful and divine than the first, whose glory suffered no transfiguration. And the angels approached and worshipped, and they venerated not the first spirit when the Lord was nigh, A cloud of radiance was interposed, through which my dazzled eyes beheld. Had I seen the Lord of brightness? My spirit itself had been consumed. Then on my face I fell and worshipped, for this was as the Supreme. 70,000 veils he wore, to hide the brightness of 70,000 suns. And lo, an ocean of light. And he said to me, Who is this that sitteth on the right of God? And I answered, Sir, thou knowest. Then this is the beloved. Sorry, I think it's missing a word there. Then he said, This is the beloved. This is the Holy Spirit, who speaks in thee and in the prophets. Queen of the ocean of light, but on the left a spirit standing, clothed as son of thunders. And I said unto the angel, Who is he? And he said, It is the messenger. Then mine eyes were opened, and I beheld the most mysterious glory. The darkness from the excess of light seized and drowned my understanding. And I heard the tongues of 1,000 thousands glorifying, venerating, and chaunting him, whose presence was too bright for me to behold, whose engulfance had stricken me blind. And the hymns ascend from the 6 heavens into the 7th heaven of the Most High. And I knew then why they sang around the thrones, whose splendour was an invisible mystery. And the angel said to this messenger of God hath received great exaltation. He is clothed by the Holy Spirit and proclaimed throughout the mouths of the divine ones. And I heard a voice of music say unto this messenger, Go, descend through all the heavens, and through the firmament of spheres, descend, assimilate thyself in appearance unto all who abide in the heavens and its circles, and go down upon the earth, and free it from the fetters of darkness. Thus the voice spake. And immediately we descended into the 6th heaven, and to the 5th, and to the 4th, to all the others, and so downwards through the multitude of circles. But whitherso we came to the dwellers in that place, recognized not the messenger of God. They believed him to be as one with themselves, for he assumed the forms that belonged to the various spheres. And he passed into the elemental circles, and into the firmament, and so upon the earth. And he took the appearance of man upon him, and was believed by men to be one of themselves. And he lived upon the earth, and announced the message. And he passed away from the earth, and ascended. And the spirits of the firmaments and the elemental circles saw him pass, but with unchanged aspect. And they were venerating him, saying, How hath he descended, and we saw him not? And how hath he passed, and we discovered not the splendour, wherewith the Lord hath clothed him? And he has ascended through the innumerable spheres, and through the various heavens of paradise. And they wondered, saying, How hath he descended, and how we knew not the messenger of heaven? And when he ascended into the 7th heaven, he came unto the great glory, and of the Holy Spirit was received with gladness. For he hath done the message of the Most High. And to me the angel said, Great are these things, which now have been made manifest to thee. For thou hast seen and known secrets, which have been kept from the children of men. Return unto thy immortal place until the days of thy journey are accomplished. Then shalt thou return hither, worthily performing the sacred purpose. Chapter 26. Vision of the messengers. And he said, Who will go? And I saw a vision, a virgin more beautiful in her light and youth than the illuminated circle of the heavens when they shine in all radiance of the stars. Winged was the virgin, and clothed to the foot, but her snow-white wings were glorified with the stars of heaven. In her right hand was the palm branch, and in her left a mystic wand, and she floated in purple light. And he said, Behold, and I saw another vision. We passed it as if it were from a gloom of night into a resplendent lustre of the morning. And the golden clouds rolled in waves of glory. Each seemed to carry a star in its breast, and sweet voices sang divine songs, and soft sounds descended in summer rain. And out of a cave hidden in deep recesses we heard archangelic hymns. And again he said, Behold, and the vision passed,
and the first was a man standing in the heaven. His left arm was extended, and his right was a crook, and in his hand were many stars. And after him appeared another man. He wore the starry robe and diadem of a king, and his right hand a whip. And there shone a third unclothed like truth, and in his hands a mighty starry serpent, and all the heaven was made splendid by his apparition of the man. And the fourth was a hero. His splendour was that of an archangel. He knelt, he bare arrows, and in his right hand a club, with the left he crushed the three-headed. And the fifth was the strength of youth and power, and in his right hand a sacred scythe or skiff, in the left a snaky head, or a snaky head. His feet were winged, he sprang like light through heaven. A glory of splendour illuminated every limb. And there shone a sixth, the offspring of Fen. He stood in heaven in cruciform shape, his air was grave. Next I saw starry twins, their brows, their shoulders, and their limbs were gemmed with stars, and one held a harp, and the other arrows. And I saw another, a terrible one. He also had the head front of a man, but the legs and the body of a war horse. And he marched as a conqueror, and he was surrounded with light. And in the 11th was a man of war, with mace and shield and breastplate, a starry giant. His belt was splendour. And in the 12th was a youth, and on his brow a star. His body and his limbs were radiant, and he held urn, U-R-N, urn, reversed, and a stream of starry lustre was poured out of the urn down over the earth. And the number of his glories was 12 times 9. And he said to me, 12, and again he said 10, and again he said, light, glory, life. And I heard a song from heaven, but I was lost in the sea of mystery. O sunborn, look thou upon the tablet. It glittered with flashes of light. Twilight settled on its pages. Darkness was around it in clouds. I saw a sceptre of beauty. It waved like a beautiful palm tree. I saw an arm of might. Death followed its descent. Again a cloud passed over me, glittering even as a crystal. And the solar spirits of heaven sang, as it were, a new song. Thou art fairer than the children of men. Grace is poured into thy lips. Therefore God hath blessed thee forever. Gird thy sword upon thy thigh, O most mighty, in the majesty, in thy power, in thy glory, ride prosperously. Because of truth and meekness and judgment, thy right hand teacheth thee terrible things. Thine arrows are sharp, sharp in the hearts of thine enemies. The multitudes fall beneath thee. Thy throne, O King, is forever. Thy sceptre of the kingdom is a haloed sceptre. Thou lovest righteousness, thou dost abhor iniquity. Therefore hath thy God anointed thee. Thy garments smell of myrrh, aloes and cassia, out of the ivory palaces. In these have they made thee beautiful. And I looked, and I saw an army of chariots, and men rode in them. And they came upon the wind from the east, and from the west also, and from the south. The sound of the noise of their chariots was heard, and the saints who were on the earth perceived it. The pillar of the earth shook from its foundations, and the roaring was heard from earth even unto heaven. And their wheels, so this is talking about basically, the rapture, harpazo. So when they came upon the wind from the east to west and south, so when it happens, it's going to travel across the whole earth because it's coming from the earth. It's going to be heard everywhere. Every animal, every life form will hear it. Well, it says here, the saints who were on earth perceived it. So it's possible that those that aren't being selected as saints
won't even hear it, or they will have their spiritual ear, shut off, as it were, so that it's not perceivable to them. In their wheels was whirlwind. They moved along in thunders, as the roaring of young lions, as the roaring of the terrible sea. Then did they all fall down, worshipping the Holy Lord of Spirits. Blessed are ye, O saints, and pure of heart. Bright and glorious is your lot. Ye shall exist in the light of the sun, in the pure beam of everlasting life, whose days shall have no end. Neither shall the days of the saints be numbered, who seek light and who obtain righteousness. Peace be unto them with the Lord of the universe. For like the sun hath truth arisen, while the night of darkness hath passed away. There shall be the light which shines forever, beaming in increase before the King of Spirits. After these I beheld thousands of myriads, of uncounted myriads. They stood before the thrones of heaven, and sang to harps and flutes. On the four wings of the thrones of heaven, on the four sides, I saw others. Their names, their orders, their gradations were announced to me by the angel. They blessed and praised the Lord of glory. The first voice blessed him forever. And the second voice blessed the messengers, and those also who are martyrs for truth. And the third voice did entreat sweetly for those who are in bondage on the earth's, whose cries ascend from sorrowful hearts in supplication to the Lord of Spirits. And the fourth voice said unto the Satans, Depart ye, go accursed. Ye are forbidden from the circle of the land. You are forbidden from the circle of the Lord, whose laws ye have ever polluted. These were the spirits of the Most High God, that spake in four thunders. I heard the voices of the four, as the voice of the sea in wrath. So isn't that interesting? Is this not stuff that was told to, was it Daniel, to seal it up and not to be revealed until the end? Was that the thunder speaking? Was that right? Or was it in Revelation? I don't know. Maybe I should do more research. But here it's saying, the blessings come in that order, I suppose, and then the fourth voice is sending the devils, the Satans, to be accursed forever. Chapter 27. Vision of Trees. From thence did I proceed towards the east, to a mountain in a far-off sphere. Its surface gleamed from a distance, its heights were crowned with woods, and waters gushed from its recesses. And a cataract of many cataracts, it foamed like a living creature, amid trees and clouds and mists. Then went I onwards from the wilderness, towards the eastern side of the mountain. There were trees of sweetly smelling perfume, frankincense and myrrh and sandal. The beauty of each one of these trees was different from the beauty of all the others, so infinitely varied were all the works that issued from the hand of God. And over all was the bright mountain, elevated like a silver firmament. Cassia breathed from its pores, and sunshine sat upon its sides. Thence did I pass amid certain lakes, whose waters never failed. There were the tree of fragrance, Zakasinon, goodly among the celestial gardens. Beside the lakes were other trees, breathing cinnamon, but fairer than cinnamon, and under their boughs celestial spirits sat and sang celestial psalms. I advanced further unto the east. Here did I behold another mountain. Trees of bloom thickly covered it, and pure fountains rose and sparkled. And out of the green blooming leaves the sweet nectar dews distilled. The trees were loaded like almond trees. Their name in heaven is Alma. Their fruit excelled all perfume, and all the sweetness of the earth's produce. And round them danced celestial choirs, to the music of golden harps. And after these things I looked forth unto the shining of the northern gate, which opened high above the mountains. I beheld 7 lofty places. They were filled with pure nard and odoriferous forests of papyrus, trees like cinnamon trees, the blue and white lotos. From thence I passed above the mountain peaks that shone like a sea of rainbows, onwards to the east over the ocean of fire, more splendid than the flame west. And I wended far into another sphere, and I saw a spirit who guarded the sea. His name in heaven is Zatiel. And he brought me to the paradise gate. O ye star dwellers, how beautiful is your homes ye shine, eagles of fire and serpents of light amid the heavens, gleaming with the ray that exceeds the dawn. Wisdom fills your spirit souls. Ye follow in the thunder path of the sun, and far below the birds of justice. Fly and do your bidding, O star dwellers. The spirit of the rainbow shines from above, and in her silver wheel is your orbit. Lightnings pass not with more rapid flight than ye from west to east. Then did the song arise around the throne of glory, and it passed from circle unto glowing circle, and went into the supreme presence. And they who were around that throne rose and knelt and laid down their wands and waves and winds, and all the fires of ether came and bowed in song. I saw the spirit of the white bosom glittering in virgin beauty amid the choirs, as the moon over the waving sea, as the evening star amid the forest leaves. Could I reveal unto thee the mystery of the sacred mysteries? Then would thy soul appraise itself like a winged serpent before the Lord God. As the wind moves over the shining waters, so would thy fire spirit be impelled. It would bear thee on lightnings, like thunder would its wings rustle. The mighty King of fire, by him hath it been forbidden. I see his glittering sword, it waves, it quivers, and I faint. From the white throne a voice comes. O thou child of bosom of light, stay, stay, murmur not. Why should this sword descend? So, chapter 28, the Tree of Knowledge. Flourishing was this shady garden, with many trees, fragrant and divine. Their appearance was of varied beauty, and as the colours of the holy city. The tree of knowledge of good and evil was there in the midst thereof. It was like a tamarind tree, bearing fruit which resembled grapes. Its perfume extended to a great distance. It was surrounded with light. How beautiful is this tree, I said, and how delightful is its appearance. One of the glorious spirits answered, It is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, whereof the essences that desire change partake, and straight away they transmigrate. For all the spirits that live in the universe are made free by God. They are endowed with full volition. For this is not the land of slaves, as light and darkness are in the cosmos. So also are the beautiful and the base. They who incline to ether are most free, according to the eternal ordinances. And they who desire the beauty only abstain wholly from the fruits of this tree. And basking in the sunshine of the divine, they dwell in content in heavenly dream. But they who desire to attain knowledge, whether it be good or whether it be evil, as many great ones do and have done, taste of the fruit of this tree. Then do they pass into other conditions, for thus only can knowledge be obtained, but great is the price they pay. The possession of the gem is fatal. As the highest spirit, so this is quite interesting, it's saying that, looking at eternity before we had worlds to go into, such as the earth, it's saying that there was an opportunity for people to learn and to advance in that world, and in order to do it you needed to go into these other realms, these other worlds to do it, and to do that you needed to eat of the fruit that you commanded not to do, and then you would have to encounter this realm for a period. And it's saying here that those that never touched that fruit in heaven remained in heaven and kept their beauty. They kept their holy bodies and didn't take on the flesh. Anyway, let's carry on.
As the highest spirit before the throne could never know what it was to be a man until he had taken on himself man's condition and experienced all man's phases of thought. Therefore, and unto this end, for the freely willing, this tree groweth here. Whosoever shall desire to alter his condition, let him taste of the fruit, and it is done. God is the diffuser of love, of life also, and of beauty. But if death came not and made a change, even these might weary in the end. Then I lifted up my hands, and gave thanks unto the Holy and Great One. Blessed art thou, O Lord King, and great are the hallows of thy majesty, Lord of all creatures of the spheres. So if you think about it, in order to learn, you need to go through situations where you can either be successful or unsuccessful. And, you know, if we did our learning in heaven, and the only way to die is the spiritual death in heaven because you don't have the fleshly body, then when you die, you're dead. There is no coming back from it. So having realms and worlds to learn in is perfect, you know. It's a perfect creation by God to allow us to be able to go there. And if we do fail miserably at learning what we came here to learn, then our death won't be the end of us, because it'll only be the death of the body, and the spirit gets to return with the knowledge that it is received in that lifetime. Let's get back to this. God of the unbounded, whose reign, whose wisdom, whose love, whose laws endure throughout the ages of ages. Forever shall thy dominion last, and the renewal of thy spirits unto light. The heavens are thy throne forever, the stars are but thy lowly footstool. Thou dost know all things, nor is there aught in light or darkness that stands concealed from thee. Thou considerest the wants of every creature, and takest heed that it may satisfy its want. Whatever tends unto perfection, that thou dost prepare for all. There is no place in heaven or in earth that does not manifest thy boundless love. There is no life throughout the infinite that shares not in thy loving thought. And I saw three splendours, and each impelled the chariot of steeds, and the phantom of a golden vase shone afar before the eyes of each. In the heaven above them was a cluster of lights, the sun, the golden glory of stars, and a beam like that of the moon, and the ether rainbow, the seraphim whose gliding kings, and each was iris girdled, and each glittered with a myriad eyes. Lo, they followed in the bright track. The cherubim came in fire from the golden incense altar. In their eyes the spirit of a power that pervades the vast infinite. Thou hast seen the sun in storms. Even so was their serene grandeur. Or the moon after the battle, even so was their calm light. Then the Ophanim passed rapidly, with the wind in their feet. These the solar kings, but I conceal their secret lore. And the biformed girdled with stars, and the six-winged with the sun rays, and the swords glistened in the violet mist. Their sceptres were as olive trees. Then did a cloud snatch me up. The winds raised me above the sphere. They placed me in the celestial land, upon a place of many thunders. There I saw another vision, palaces of the heavenly pure. There did spirits hymn to God. They interceded for the sons of men. The sun-bright heaven flowered around. Love and beauty were like dew. Righteousness flowered before their faces. The bloom of light was over all. Thus shall it be with them for ages of ages, with these countless dazzling spirits. They dwell under the wing of the Eternal, and sing in the measure of the stars. They stand before him like living fire. Their mouths bless him like sweet honey. Their lips glorify the Supreme One, and virtue shone through each. There was I, desirous and remaining. My spirit longed for its ascendant time. Antecedent home. My bad. Once, like these also, had I stood before God. Then did I extol his name. Blessed be he,
and ever blessed, the Lord of the star-bright lands, wise before the universe was formed, wise when all shall have passed away. What are the earths? What is the sun? And who sleeps and praises thee not? All are but leaves that rot in winter. They have not lived, and now they are no more. Sorry. They have lived, and now they are no more. But blessed in thy light are they, who without slumber stand before thy throne. They sing unto the Lord of purity, who fills the universe of life with love. Chapter 29. Celestial Gleams and Glimpses. There are 3 mystical fountains, and over them 12 trees bend, making music like sweethearts when they tremble to the silver touch. Out of their depths dawn arises, the dawn of the primary beam. Light rushes over their depths, but oh, what is that light? The eagles cried, the serpents rose, like flames of fire into the sun. And I saw the gleam of the most ancient, worship God alone, that divides the spirit from the soul, and splendent flame from the smoke. What is the light of the eye? And what is the vivid force of the heart? I see a white fountain flowing in the midst of shrubs. I see a rainbow touch the earth, yet it is not of the earth. The moon is in the mid-heaven, yet it is not surrounding air. It is not the surrounding air. The pulse of nature is in the ocean, yet the ocean is not nature. There saw I an island of fire, rivers of flame, poured out its depths. Its many spirits, bright as waves, mingled beautifully in the golden lightnings. In the mists I saw a throne, shining like a white star of beauty, but it gleamed amid the solemn silence, darkly silent, darkly splendid. And in the front a silver sea, and at its feet 7 rivers, and round its arch 7 rainbows, and at its sides were silver wheels, voices of waves of mystic waters, echoed all around that throne. And I saw pillars of resplendent lustre, and I heard the trumpets that spake of God. Men passed with musical harps, men passed with gleaming swords. As fishes in the sea, so did they glide amid the oceans of fire. Who are these? The angel said. I said, My Lord, thou knowest. He looked at me with piercing eyes. Thou also, O Enoch, art not ignorant. They pass like evening clouds, mild and bright and vivid, over the hills of darkness, into green plains. The eagles cried with joy. The thunders leaped. They laughed. Bring back the many unto God. Blessed is he who bringeth even one. Clothe thee in thy blue girdle, O son of prayer. Tremble not, let not thine eyes roll. Beat not in heart, nor let thy words falter. I will show thee the secret of the deeps, the mystic song of the ancient. It was murmured in the dark, before the mountain streams rolled in light. He shall come upon the shores of the world. He shall draw his dominion over them. Thrice, thrice, thrice. But they will not hearken unto him. Deeply moving in its mighty strength, it's the blue-green addy. Who shall escape the volume of gloom? Who shall flee from the billowy flame of death? The Lord of thunder rises, sovereign of lights, sovereign of lightnings and fires. He looses the chain. So yeah, this is talking about when he lets the end of the world begin. Sovereign of lightning and fires, and he looses the chain. So we'll see that great tempest and storm come with fire and brimstone as a great storm over the whole earth. He loses the chain. I see his chariot in the dark violet mists. O Lady of Beauty, O sparkling Queen of Stars. The sea rises in its terrors. Like glittering spears are its foaming waves. 4 times the thunders snorted. Like steed of battle in their rage.
The 9 with diadems of pearl entreated, "Stay the broad-breasted." But it comes, it rolls like mountain steeds, terrible with hoofs and hecks of smoke. I saw the power of the pale gleaming. His sword fell, and all was death. Shall I unfold the mysteries of light, the secrets of the ocean stream? Shall I unveil the beam of heaven, that green rainbow moves over the sea? The sons of fire, so the green rainbow over the sea, is that not the northern lights? The sons of fire come forth, the pride-winged dragons of the skies. They glittered in the golden streams of clouds. They said, "O messenger, stay thee. Let not thy voice go forth to reveal the dark secrets." And the stars twinkled in a dim splendour, saying unto my spirit, "Stay." Even in light there are secret recesses where the spirit seeks repose. As the sun sinks into clouds to reappear more beautifully, there is music. Their music lulls them, and their rustle of the mystic forests. And the soul illuminator comes and gleams in pictures of serene loveliness. The gentle words of books prevail over the sea of wandering thoughts, and dreams like springing spring showers bathe them in dew of light. In an alcove green with palm trees shaded from the heaven sun, I sank, wearied with the brightness that lay upon my dazzled spirit. An egg more beautiful than the sun, when in the sparkling west he sinks, gleamed as if it shone amid 10,000 rainbows of the most pure and dazzling light. But quick as the whirl of a sword in the hand of a young hero, it shone, it revolved, it vanished. It was a momentary glimpse of the universe. Flowing are the streams of fire, over which the eagle angels soar. From the mountains rush torrents of flame. The forest trees are pillars of light, and in their white robes, splendid glory. The ancients pass amid the whirl. The voice of beauty sounds, and smooths the dark red billows. O ye mystic fountains, 3 sources of the primary worlds, rising into light like morning beams, let me bathe my spirit in your blue. We passed the troubled whirlpools of fire. Many dark wanderers we saw. Garmented they were in black. Their faces were sunless, but far off in the distance we saw veils, and the altar fires of the mystic. There did the bright Isarim pray. The groves echoed with their psalms, like white stars moving in light. They circled round the serpent shrine and raised their arms of snow in adoration of the silent lightnings. I stood in silence amid those star courses. I longed to see the holy sanctuary. Streams of rushing fire rolled around. The winged lightnings quivered from east to west, from north to south. It seemed one vast and splendid sea of flashes, as if it were a furnace ever quivering, with clouds of newborn lustre. Come thou into the waters of the sun, bathe thee in its splendid fountain, and on thy thigh receive the visible sign. It's marked the true apostle. That would be the tithe. Swift as a star was borne onwards into the sea of light, and there, transfigured in a dream, I was bathed in mists and clouds. And now I moved as in a dark dream. The serpent of the spheres was coiled around me. We wandered as in fiery mist, yet was there a sound of sweet music afar off in a cloud of rainbows. He showed me the ambrosial city, girdled with a choir of gleaming suns. So in this particular city there'll be suns that are round about the borderline of it. Amazing. This is the abode of the celestial, and I saw a hand lustrous in its beauty, and it held the morning star. This is the clothing of the sons of heaven. She raised it as though she did present, eagle of the fiery wood. Thus spake me in mine inner ear, there are 12 children of light, who shall go forth from the halls of flame. The firstborn shall dispel the darkness, which, like a night, looms over the multitudes. The last messenger, the true and faithful, shall flash the beauty of the rainbow Phani is his name. Phani with like Phani, it says. An oak of trembling leaves and branches, but the forest trees shall listen. Listen. To the melody of its waving boughs, he spake and sank into the sun. And the sun gleamed with double glory, but the echo of his mystic speech rang in the thunder through my spirit. Slowly over the calm waters came the spirit of thrones. Her long white robe flowed into her feet. In her hand the silver circle, the stars followed in her train like servants. The sun and moon bowed down, amen, amen. This was all I heard. Sorry, only a few pages now. Chapter 30, the vision of God. Another vision then did I behold. Clouds invited me, a mist embraced me. The stars glittered and moved in splendour. Flashes of lightning impelled me forward, and winds accelerated my ascent. They elevated me higher and higher, where I beheld a wall built with stones of crystal. A belt of fire surrounded it, and my heart was filled with terror. I entered into this quivering flame, and I drew nigh unto a mighty palace. Its walls and pavements were of crystal. Every stone was of fiery brightness, and in the roof the stars wandered, with a restless, agitated light. And tongues of fire and lightnings flashed, darted through its spacious halls, and there were cherubim of a flame splendour, like meteors in a starry sky. A dazzling flame burned in its battlements. The gates were flame also. When I entered into this place, behold, it was hot as fire and cold as ice. Every symbol of delight was there, but terror overpowered my spirit. My heart beat, my heart trembled, a fearful agitation seized me. I fell upon my face, and I was sore afraid. Yet I looked the vision in the eyes, and behold, I saw another habitation, more vast and splendid than the first, and all its mighty gates were wide open, and it stood firm in the midst of forever rolling fire. It is impossible to describe its glory, or its awful vast and boundless magnitude. So greatly did its wondrous structure excel in all things, whatsoever the thought of man is able to conceive. Its flooring was pure dazzling flame. Above were flashing lightnings and tongues of fire, and darting, agitated stars were there. And the dome was an intolerable splendour, and in the centre I saw a throne. Azure white, it was like a sun-illuminated ice. Its circle was the circumference of the sun's orb, and the songs and hymns of seraphim were heard, and underneath this mighty throne, rivers of red fire poured. Excuse me. So when a few videos back, when I shared a video of a gentleman that claimed that he's been to heaven over 80 times, when he explains what he saw as the throne, it kind of explains this, that in the centre of heaven you've got this big sea of ice, I suppose, which is ultimately the top of the firmament, which is the footstool of the throne of God. And all spirits, when they go to see the Lord in their regular intervals, it's not all go at the same time, but there's constantly different groups going to give praise to God in this area, and they all come and stand upon that sea. And ultimately that would also mean the same as when we're risen up into the clouds, given new bodies, and then spend the marriage with the Lord. It will be upon the top of the firmament. It's on the sea of crystal glass. Anyway, let me get back to the book. Rivers of red fire flowed. To look upon its lustre was impossible. To gaze and live was a forbidden thing. One great in mystery sat upon it, whose robe was brighter than the sun. Whiter than snow it glittered, more dazzling in its colours than an ice mountain. No spirit could look upon the face, this being, the glorious, the effulgent. No mortal could behold that light, set within the trance of vision. A fire of flaming fire was around, a fire flaming fire rose up before.
so that the myriads that circled the throne, not one could go nigh. But the divine requires not holy counsel, nor the advice of the wise of heaven. Yet did not the pure spirits who were around and near depart one moment from that glory? They went not from the glorious glowing presence, for there is paradise effused. There did I vow my face. I advanced with trembling awe. My heart quivered as I went. Then the divine called me, saying, Approach hither, Enoch, at my bidding. And I was raised up even to the entrance, but my eye was fixed on the ground. Then addressing me, the voice spake, Hear thou me, neither be thou afraid. Approach hither and hearken unto the fallen ones of earth descend. I looked, and in the hand of God I saw flowers, his beautiful sceptre. I looked again, and saw lightnings. These also as a sceptre did he wield. Then the seraphim, the cherubim, and the Ophanim were seen, the sleepless splendours of the Most High, who know not rest, repose, or slumber, but watch the throne of God forever. And I beheld angels, innumerable thousands, myriads of myriads, in that house of fire. With them was the beautiful one, whose robe was glory indescribable. And the 24 ancients borne in chariots of flame, thunders pealed, lightnings glittered, as they marched in the sun paths. Then did I fall prostrate, with all my flesh dissolved away. My spirit also became changed, was transfused into a shining star. Oceans of fire commingled with oceans of waters. I saw their whitely shining waves advance in the sunlight of beautiful as an army of swans. Over and upon them innumerable blessed spirits, and some were winged and some were wingless, but all were lovely. And the streams of song and melody were heard, the sweet ascent of golden harps, and the voices chanting the love of God and the beauty that abides in heaven. Sorry, my screen looked like it was loading then. Let me just read that last bit again. And the streams of song and melody were heard, the sweet accents of golden harps and of voices chanting the love of God and the beauty that abides in heaven. O ye dwellers amid the stars, who move in billows of lucid fire, born amid the wild music of the spheres, amid the sweet echoes of the sea, ye are angels, angels of the waters. Hear the heartstring of my trembling soul. Give me of your sacred wisdom, that I may teach the earth wanderers. May God protect you, they answered. Receive this holy wand, and with it mark the sons of men, with the heavenly token of the one. Another splendour now I saw. The spirits of this high heaven, they answered unto their names one by one, as the voice of God called them. God spake, and the spirits heard him. And to each was light, allotted in that moment, light according to the lustre of his works. For splendour generates splendour. For splendour generates splendour, and I saw the spirits transfused. They transmigrated into the beautiful. They mingled with the celestial intelligences that shone around the thrones of infinity. Splendour issued from these splendid ones, as light from the sun and stars. Never is its beauty dimmed. 'Tis the essence of their own nature. The Lord of Spirits sat upon his throne. The spirit of beauty was over him. Lightning came upon his lips. Sinners saw them, and they perished. But to the holy essences of heaven, who received the commandments of God, combined power, multiform, and myriad eyes, voices, splendours like fire, given. And they all hymned before him, as if with a united song, blessing, glorifying, exalting him, the one, the Holy One of ages. That every power that is in heaven, and all the pure intelligences, the cherubim, the seraphim, the Ophanim, all the spirits of power, and all the mighty ones of wisdom, raised their sacred hymns of light and love and praise before the Father, blessing, glorifying him, the holy blessed art thou, O Lord. And may the name be praised forever. All who are in heaven bless it. All the holy among the celestials praise it. All the pure who dwell in paradise, every spirit that lives in light, every mortal who hath known truth, glorifies thy name forever and ever. Great is thy benevolence, O Lord, and thy power from generation to generation. thy majesty and magnificence. How great they are, how deep and wonderful are all thy mysteries. Amen. And that is Enoch, the Book of God. So there's also an epilogue here to, I mean, like I say, the first half of the book is obviously Keneally writing, and he does go into his beliefs and the other stuff he's read. Nonetheless, I don't think that's relevant because that's just his personal opinion. I was looking really for the scripture, and like I've said, use your own discernment, because there's bits in there that I'm thinking that he might have mistranslated, possibly on purpose, or maybe out of his mere ignorance to the truth, I don't know. But anyway, I'm just going to read this epilogue to finish up. It's only 3 pages. So, Dr. Keneally was often asked what evidence he had to show that his Enoch, the Book of God, was a genuine original, and by what authority he claimed its authenticity. His preferred response was to throw the question back to the reader and ask if they could not intuitively recognise the hand of God in its contents. In other words, each reader must decide for himself if it bears the hallmark of the devilish impostor, or whether, as an enlightened soul, the reader can detect for himself whether the sublime contents of this book came directly through the messianic messenger, or are simply faked by some cunning individual or group of individuals. He says to answer this question, he merely needs you to refer to the Book of God itself. It contains the fullest internal evidence of what it purports to be. One can feel its surpassing grandeur and truth. As to external evidence, he states, where internal demonstration fails, there is no external evidence equally strong to convince. However, he cautions that only one man in 1,000 can elevate his mind to a conception of subjects like these, as the condition of the multitude is sunk in ignorance, mental sloth, and sensuality. So who is qualified to make judgment on this matter? Moreover, who is prepared to put in the required effort to truly benefit from this inspirational book? We all understand that a man cannot gain money, food, or worldly possessions without labour, so who could believe that one can acquire truth without similar or greater without greater exertions? Neither truth nor light will come to any man who does not want them with all his heart and soul, and who is not willing to toil for them through night and day. I have copied my edition from no manuscript, but I have moulded and modelled it under a divine auspice. Those who require ocular proof for everything and deny God unless you show him visibly will not be satisfied. Those who are content to judge by the effect which these works, when well studied, may have on their own natures, will recognise the celestial hand, tracing on every page celestial light. Says Dr. Keneally so aptly. His mission was to promulgate truth, but not to compel any to receive it. He believed it may take 1,000 years or more for his work to be universally confessed, but that it would be so. He harboured no doubts at all, so I think he's thinking that he's the Christ, by the sounds of it. He thinks that by writing this book, he's the one that's brought the message, and really, a lot of what I've just read has come out of the other Book of Enoch. In this commentary, which precedes the book, are a large number of references, but also there are bits in here that aren't in the other Book of Enoch, so that's why I wanted to read it, to get it out there. In his commentary, which precedes the book, are a large number of references to the Neronic cycle, whereby he believed that holy messengers descends every 600 years. His description requires the birth of a great messenger around the year 1800, which he doesn't name. Whether he is himself that messenger is open to constructive debate, and whether he is concealing that the first 3 messengers of Adam, Enoch, and Foe are of different nature from those latter in the sequence. It's also open to conjecture, given that there must be a large break of time between the 3 and the later 9. Perhaps Adam, Enoch, and Foe are messianic messengers compared with the later heavenly messengers. In any event, it must be so that all truth needs to be generated and recirculated from time to time. Otherwise, this Book of Enoch by Dr. Keneally may also have faded away without our intervention. Another difficult area is the implication in the first part of his work that European man is descended from Asian man. In spite of this,
At one point, he does clearly state that the European man and Asian man in their highest orders are cousins descendants from the Atlantean man, which of course would explain all the linguistic similarities as well as the racial ones between European man and Asian man, without the assumption that the former is merely an offshoot of the latter. Nor at any point does he acknowledge or refer to the influx of Lemurian man into the Eastern Asia or the Americas. A complicated subject through this may be, it detracts not one iota from the truth of this book, either in whole or any part. So, to me, I know that in the past there was a lot more knowledge around, and people could actually, even in the Book of Ezra that was written, not long before Christ, but Ezra could say all of his descendants all the way ultimately back to Adam, so even until 2,000 years ago, people knew their genealogy from the beginning of time, from Adam. So for 4,000 years straight, people could list off their descendants, their granddads and their great-granddads. Whereas now, I knew of my granddad, but I didn't know my great-granddad, which was the third generation from me. So it's funny how all this knowledge has been abundant in the past, but when he's talking about his stuff, he's not talking about, for example, the history of Noah repopulating the world after the flood. Yet he's talking about things like Atlantis, and then he forgot to mention Lemuria. So these are kind of things that make me a bit suspicious about this book, or at least that he did it according to his own ego. But that's just my personal opinion anyway. Dr. Keneally concludes that he has read every great book that the earth possesses, but never one that comes close to either the Apocalypse or the Book of Enoch. If one is to thoroughly study this book through several readings, one would be wrapped, as it were, in wings of flame, to realms of divinest thought, far and far away from the earth. One would never regret the hours that you give to it, and you may certainly see and experience, perchance, for the first time, the actual form of holy truth. Absorb that holy truth and partake of it freely in happiness and fulfillment, and then go forth and spread the light to others, not through argument and debate, but through happy countenance and a contented peace of all your undertakings. Fiat Lux. And that is Enoch, the Book of God. I hope you enjoyed, and if anyone's got any comments to make, questions to ask, or anything at all, please feel free to put it in the comments below. And I look forward to being with you again very soon. Take care, everyone, and God bless.